Now I've hit the live button. This should theoretically be getting streamed to the interwebs, and someone can hear me, and maybe you if you're lucky, or unlucky depending on your perspective. And yeah. Hey everyone.
Hi,
I
everybody.
I
Welcome to. I almost forgot what our show's called. Wait, we should record the audio,
Yeah,
right?
we should turn on the audio for the rest of it. Yeah. So here's okay, bonus part goes away. Here comes all right, you got it. You count it down, right?
Yep.
Mr. Metronome. That's what they call him.
Oh my God, you're right. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody. It's Cryptic Puzzle.
Craptic Pazzle. Oh, I said
And I
crap
didn't.
right in the
We're gonna have to we're gonna have to edit the whole episode out
No.
now.
No, I think I'm just gonna call the podcast crap right off the jump, and we're gonna pretend like I didn't. Oh, you can see that we're looking at this on YouTube. Thanks, Long Play websites, longplay.org, for providing us this footage. Also, yeah, welcome, everyone.
Yes, welcome. It's Cryptic Puzzle. It's the show where we're somewhere between a YouTube channel and a podcast and maybe a video essay if we get that analytical, where we talk about video games
Yeah. Oh,
and
we
video
should.
game deep.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say we should really get into the video essay part of it eventually. I don't know if Metroid Dread. That's today's episode. I spoiled it. Um, is going to be the one for the real analysis, but in case we've been talking about like Near, we've been talking about like maybe an Elden Ring, which has upcoming DLC, even though Andy probably hates that game, which is sacrilege. But
I think I do. I'm not sure.
I'll fight him in real life on behalf of everyone else who listens to this, which will be just me probably. But
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think I like the video. I think we're on the video essay side of the world a little bit, at least when we really get talking about how deep things are and design and things that are interesting potentially.
yeah, I'd
But
love to do more of that, but I'm gonna get better at it too. This is try number three.
3.
Three.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even count to three. That's how bad I am at this.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the laid back. I like the laid back zone. I personally, when I like listen to YouTube things, like I really love the summoning salt part of the world, which is like you're gonna get really deep into this topic and we're gonna really explore every step by step like thoroughly. But I really like Arlo, for example, who's just like, I'm gonna talk today about like the Switch 2 and like what people think about it, and it's like a more casual conversational style of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, now that we're revealing all of our hidden creative secrets, all of the secrets that aren't just us being like, "Hey, I also consume video game content on the internet, much like you." That's my secret.
Yeah.
That's the whole secret. It's the entire thing.
I
Anyway,
think everybody does. If they don't admit it, we all secretly consume something. Everyone now, I feel like, has a weird YouTube niche that they love to like watch about something weird or out there or deep in the lore, you know?
oh, absolutely. And also, if you don't like video games, you're a liar.
Yeah, and also you
They're
do like
cool.
video games if you're watching this.
Yeah, if you found this and you don't like video games, I I gotta say, really impressed. Send me like $100 or something. That's my only request.
We would like $100, please. Send it.
No. I want $100.
Send it to Cryptic Puzzle. Our PO box is 3479.
You're gonna say a real address, and someone's gonna send $100 in an envelope to a random PO box,
No,
and
no,
that
that's it. It's 3479.
oh,
Just write that on an
there's
envelope.
no other location. All right. Anyway, now that we are fully just not even in the realm of talking about the topic at all, yeah,
I
today we're
dread how this is gonna go, bro. I mean, it's definitely one of those nights. We're gonna talk about Metroid today, everybody.
no one could see that, but I got very close to the camera to stare through Andy's soul after that
And
one.
he looks just like Mega Man.
I don't.
Um,
Speaking of people who
so
look like Mega Man, this is Samus. Samus is cool. She's got a power suit and an arm cannon, and it shoots missiles and lasers. if you'd never heard of Metroid before, what are you doing with your
Yeah.
life?
Let's start with this. Let's go way back. Let's bring it all the way back. What was your reaction when you saw the Metroid Dread trailer in like 2020 or whenever it happened?
Oh, I was astonished because so I had already forgotten that Dread was like already a planned game and then got canceled at some point because it was supposed to be the next mainline Metroid game, and then like 20 years passed or whatever it was, or close to 20 years, from Fusion, which is technically Metroid 4. Um, and yeah, just never got a follow up. So yeah, when they showed it off, I was like, oh my God, it's back. And also, as much as I like the Prime games and how people were excited for the prospect of Prime 4, the 2D Metroid games are still better, even if I think the Prime games are basically just a first person shooter version of the same games. Um, I just prefer the 2D perspective. But yeah, so I was astonished that it was even possible, let alone actually coming out, to the point where I was worried the same thing was going to happen to Dread as what happened to Prime 4, which is it's just stuck in production nonsense turmoil, where it's been canceled and restarted like 3 or 4 times or whatever it is. So yeah.
Yeah, which is actually remarkable now that you say it, that after the announcement of 4, we had the announcement and the release of Dread, like well
Yup.
within the window of 4. That's pretty insane, like now that I actually think about it that
Prime
way.
4 got re-announced in like 2017,
Yep.
and it's just been crickets till then, except I think another development cycle reset. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, oh well. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, Metroid's been around for a really long time now at this point, all the way back to the OG Nintendo. So
Yep. And so yeah, if you didn't know, this is technically Metroid 5 in the mainline actual story of Metroid, which I feel like when I started playing Dread is when I realized that there is actually one cohesive Metroid story, like told in 5 acts, which is like crazy because I feel like the thing with Metroid was never story, but I feel like they did a great job of actually piecing together the narrative up to this point of what Samus has done.
oh yeah, absolutely. It's certainly not like a story heavy thing. As we stated right before this call, the story of Metroid is basically Samus, cool bounty hunter, goes to the planet to fight something, probably gets all of her powers taken away from her right in the beginning, fights to get all of them back plus some new ones, and then figures out that there's some sort of galaxy ending threat on the planet. So then she blows up the planet and escapes at the end of the game. And that's true of all of them. All of them.
Yeah, every single
Yeah,
one.
that's the spoilers for all of Metroid Forever. Um, the
Which
pretense
one's
of why all of those things happen is a little bit different, but not really. So
Yeah, so there's Metroid, Metroid 2, and then Super, which is 3, and then Fusion, which is 4,
mhm.
and now Dread, which is 5. And you're right, every single one, you find out at some point that there's something that's going to destroy the galaxy on the planet, and you blow it up with the planet and escape in a heroic fashion.
Yep, yeah. So it's cool. It works. It's a good concept. You're running around in a cool Chozo power suit. The Chozo. Oh yeah, I guess here let's give some Metroid lore. So Samus is a bounty hunter, and she's got this really cool power suit from this ancient race of aliens called the Chozo, who were supposedly so technologically advanced that they just disappeared. They basically like outgrew wanting to exist and just kind of died off. It's not really explained as far as I'm aware.
Gonna
Which
say yeah, like that I didn't really know, especially because in Dread there are some Chozo that you actually meet, but yeah, they're sort of equivalent to like the Sheikah in Breath of the Wild a little bit. Like they're just sort of this like really technologically advanced society who was in the past, and we don't know what happened to them,
yep,
right?
yeah, something like that. It's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe there's more to that. Maybe somebody who's like really deep into Metroid lore has like some other blah blah blah. But yeah, the way that you end up finding all your power ups, because miraculously on most of these planets that Samus goes to, there seem to be statues of Chozo, and they hold up a little ball, and then she shoots the ball, and then she touches the thing that was in the ball. She gets new power. It's amazing how that exists just
Yeah.
on all of the planets that she goes to.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it's got to
incredible.
be a pretty cool power suit that it can just absorb whatever.
That I think is the nifty part, is like the concept of Samus's power suit and being so adaptable and blah blah blah. Because like
Yep.
even the whole pretense of why the suit was different in Fusion is because she got infected with the X, and so they pulled off almost all of the suit because it was infected. And then like the part that was still like grafted and bonded to her is like basically a part of her nervous system now because she's been in the suit for so long, which is nuts.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's cool.
Do you think when she's at home she like picks up a Tide Pod and like absorbs the Tide Pod power into her suit and she's like, I can do my laundry now and
I
my dishwasher.
I really
I
thought
have
you were just
dishwasher
yeah, I
power
really thought you
now.
were just gonna ask if she eats it.
Don't Tide Pods look a little bit like a Metroid power up, but like shrunk down, really tiny? They're
I
like
think that
colorful and they have a swirl.
I'm pretty sure the last time I looked at a Tide Pod that it looked like a Tide Pod.
I feel like Samus could absorb one if she got close enough
She
to it.
could, and then she just begins foaming at the mouth because she's not just
Yeah,
filled with soap. Oh,
that's what I mean. Yeah, you're like we had to remove Samus's power suit again.
she dies from toxic shock of absorbing concentrated laundry detergent.
The scientists are like, on the bright side, my laundry is done for
It's
months.
like
I
it's
won't have to
amazing.
clean.
I've never
I
had
won't have to clean anything.
incredible. We don't have to do any maintenance on this.
Oh God! All right, so Metroid Dread is the game we're talking about today. I still remember that. I
Are you
never
sure?
forgot it.
Oh, okay.
I never forgot it. And so Tommy, so I played this game on launch. I think you also got it on launch, but you had never finished it. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I did what I have realized that I do a lot, and I think I figured out why. So
Okay.
a game, I'll be in the middle of playing a game already, and then a new game that I want to play comes out, and then I hear that it's really good, and so I buy it like the day after it comes out or something. Once it's confirmed that the game is good and like performs okay on whatever machine it's on, and then I boot it up to confirm that it runs good on my machine, which not as big a deal on the Switch. It's usually a PC game thing for me. And then I turn it off, and then I go back to playing whatever other game, and then I forget that the game that I just bought exists
Okay.
for years, which is
This is the
exactly
most.
what happened with Dread.
This is the most first world problem I've ever heard in my
It's
entire
yep,
life.
it is the definition of a first world. Listen, my brain doesn't always work so good. This is just how I operate. And
So wait, so did you play Dread for like literally 10 minutes and then
I played Dread for somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes because I remember specifically booting it up going, oh my God, I can't believe there's a new 2D Metroid. I can't wait to play this. And then I did like the opening sequence, and I think I encountered the first Emmy, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then I fell asleep with the controller in my hands on my couch. And
yeah.
then
Oh yeah, you have said
and then
this.
I turned it off, and the next day I went back to playing the other game that I was playing instead of Dread, and then just like forgot that I owned Dread for a while. And then you were like,
Yeah.
we should do like a Metroid. I was like, oh, I should finally play that game that I own, that I know I'll
Yeah.
really enjoy, and only just now basically remembered it should be in my rotation. So yeah, so that's how we got here. The Emmy is current for anyone who's watching the YouTube video, is currently on screen. It's this scary robot thing that hunts you throughout areas. So this is it's actually a new thing. You know, we haven't even talked about what the base gameplay of Metroid in general is. Let's start with that. I think that's what
Yes.
we should do.
Yes, I agree. So I was gonna say words. So a Metroidvania, if you've never seen what that actually physically is basically like the whole concept of it is and this goes all the way back to like the very first Metroid, which like basically started the entire genre, is you're navigating what is essentially an open world functionally, but the way that you progress is by getting new abilities. And so by getting new abilities, it unlocks more parts of the world that are accessible to you, which lead you to more new abilities that unlock more parts of the world that are accessible to you. And that's basically like the simple gameplay loop of what every Metroid game is. You're sort of organically just exploring this world and finding abilities that make you like more powerful and better in combat, but also they allow you to backtrack and find new places of the world and openly explore in that way.
Yeah, the exploration part is really like the cool part about the Metroid games. Even though there's not like it's not like there's going to be dynamic or like emergent gameplay like you would think of in a more modern open world or exploration heavy type thing. It's just that there's a lot of stuff everywhere all the time. And so these games classically start you off where either like in the first game it's just you kind of show up, and I don't even think you start with missiles. I think you just start with the regular power beam and the ability to jump, and that's basically
Yeah.
it. Which
And in the
is
very
you,
first one, your beam doesn't even reach far. Like one of the upgrades you get is called the
the
long
long
beam,
beam,
which
yeah.
means your beam goes further. So like, yes, it is so stripped back, you know?
Yeah, it's incredibly simple, and as you get more and more stuff, there's abilities that you'll get something that will let you like. There's literally the high jump in some of the games where it's like, oh, I couldn't even get to this part of the map because that ledge that I had to jump up to was like 3 times as high as my regular jump, and now that I have the high jump, I can get up there. And so this is like an entire branch of the map that I couldn't access before. Or it's, oh, I got this new missile or bomb type that allows me to blow open this area that I could not previously. So it's very often the tools that you're getting are not just weapons, but they're also movement and traversal abilities, which you have to actively engage with, which makes the progression part really fun because you'll get a new thing, and then the room that you're in is designed to basically force you to use whatever the new thing to get out of it. And then your brain immediately starts working to, oh wait, there was like these 3 or 4 other spots like on the other corner of the map that had the same thing over there. I should go back there
Yep.
and check it out and see what's over there. And sometimes it's literally the way that you have to go next in the game. And other times it's, oh, actually, there's just some cool other collectibles and like missile and health upgrades and stuff over there. So it's pretty much always worth it as long as you are even vaguely interested in running around the world. And it feels really good to run and jump and shoot in these games. All of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that like sort of the secret magic of it a little bit is like that you sort of just automatically feel more powerful as you go through the game. Like the game doesn't have to tell you that you're getting more powerful or have you level up or whatever. You just like by the end, you sort of subconsciously without realizing it suddenly are like, "Oh man, I'm like the master of this world. Like I know how to traverse. I can go anywhere I want. I'm stronger than when I began." And like I don't know. I think the organic part of it too, um, for me is like what makes it so special because like you just like the game isn't like, oh cool, now you can fight this boss, you can advance to this next level. Like you just are existing in the world, and organically by like now you can jump higher, you can get new places. It just I don't know. It feels like the perfect way to to it just expressed to the player like the fact that you're getting more powerful and make the game engaging without doing it in an arbitrary way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird because like I would almost I don't know if I necessarily agree with the word arbitrary because I would almost argue that it does do it arbitrarily and that's why it works.
But
And
like
let
as
me
a
go ahead.
yeah, but I mean like as the player it doesn't feel that way. Like you're right
Yes.
that it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying that is really around the like, oh, I'm gonna go to this corner of the map in this place that I've been before, and hey, here's some of these enemies that were giving me a hard time, but now I have this new tool, and they're easier to take care of now. And on top of that, when I go back to this really early area with all my new stuff, because like when I go to the left now instead of the right or whatever it was, because I have the ability to do that, all the regular super weak enemies, you just steamroll. It's like
Right.
they're not even a threat. So you both go, oh, I can fight this new thing now, and also go, oh, those old guys, they're not even remotely a problem anymore. I don't have to worry about them at all. If they hit me, I've got like 10 energy tanks, so I have like 1,000 energy, and that guy hit me and it did like 15. I'm good. Not even worried about it. It's a great feeling, and it does it like you said. It's very organic, very natural because they deliberately incentivize you to go as many places as you can with as many things as you have all the time.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. It really just emboldens like your sense of agency as a player and like your abilities as existing in the world. And like I don't know. I feel like as an adult, it probably doesn't sound exciting, but like oh, I feel like when I was like 10, that was like the most exciting thing in the world. Is that like when you're playing the game, you're like getting more powerful, and your sense as a player, like what you can do in the world, is growing. Like feels awesome.
Yeah, and it's also it's that, and it's also the it's both extrinsic and intrinsic feeling of progression there, because
Yeah.
you're literally getting like your number is going up. I have more missiles, I have more energy, my attacks do more damage, but also you are learning the layout of the map. You're learning how
Mm-hmm.
to use the ability. You're learning where this thing is and that I got to come back to it later. So it's not just a mechanical upgrade at any point. It's not like I could very early on just be like, oh, I juiced all Samus's stats in the beginning and now I feel better. It's the way that you get there is this constant slow burn of you getting better in every aspect. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
why these games work very, very, very well, because they found that very specific good feeling loop and fundamental like design philosophy to the way that they make these maps and everything.
Yep.
And they have pretty much just repeated that same concept forever. And it's so strange to say that in like 5 mainline games, some spin-offs in Prime, and then I'm just not even going to count like the Federation Force nonsense because that's just not even a related game in my head. But they've somehow managed to just do that same thing over and over again, but maintained a high level of quality the entire time. Because you mentioned the word Metroidvania, and obviously the name comes from this game franchise, and Castlevania is where the other half of that comes from. Primarily Symphony of the Night. It was the first game that I think got that moniker,
Mm-hmm.
because it defined a style and genre of game. We decided to name the genre after the game that it was like because we couldn't think of a better word. You know,
Yeah.
it's the Souls like kind of thing. You know, people are like, yeah, when you make a game that's like a Dark Souls, we just call it a Souls like now because we don't know
Right.
how to call it anything else for whatever reason. Video games and genre names are not a good thing, but regardless, so yeah, I think the fact that Metroid as a franchise has managed to stay high quality, with the exception of some of those other like not the same design philosophy games at all, that I mentioned
Right.
before.
Yeah.
And there's about 18 quadrillion other Metroidvanias that people have tried to make of varying quality. There's some really, really, really good ones out there. There's some really good ones out there, and there's also a lot of really forgettable ones, because even though they dress up like a Metroid game, and they theoretically do all the same things, they never make the mechanics like either the mechanics don't feel good enough, or the world and level design isn't interesting or clever enough. You just don't feel incentivized to keep playing the same way as you do in Metroid, and it falls apart. It's crazy to me how I can think of a genre that I would say I categorically really like, but I also really only play a handful of them because it's one of the most like oversaturated things that exist out there.
Yeah. Okay. So I got a lot to say. So I think we should dive into more Metroidvanias in a bit here. But like, I will say the first thing that was remarkable to me. So I was excited that this game was announced, and I was like, I'm gonna play it and I'm gonna love it. Um, I was pumped for the concept of the Emmys and like what they were doing with it, because it really does feel like the next progression in like horror after the SAX and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie, like when I say that I'm a huge Metroidvania fan, like I have played tons and tons of them, that like there was a good part of me that was like, but is Metroid gonna come in and pull it off? Like, are they still the king of Metroidvanias, or is like, or did the indie space really take that over and do it better than Nintendo will ever be able to? Because like, they're Nintendo, they don't do Metroidvanias all the time, but like I immediately was like, yo, dog, Metroid's still the king of Metroidvania. Like
Yes.
they
Yeah.
absolutely still are. They nailed it.
Yes. Yeah. There's like a handful of exceptions that exist out there. There's like the Hollow Knights and stuff of the world, But when it comes to this style, it's the series that the genre is namesaked after, because also Castlevania's got some really good ones in there too. They're the genre is named after them for a reason, because they are on top.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's whichever subset of the team at Konami was doing those Castlevania games, Mercury Steam on Dread, and then just also whichever Nintendo teams have been making Metroid for, oh god, oh so long, almost 40 years,
Yeah.
somewhere on the order of 35 years at this point.
Yeah. But I, I
And
am
yeah,
I am pleasantly surprised that they to anyone's eye, Nintendo had basically abandoned Metroidvanias, and the indie space was like, well, we'll take up that mantle, and Nintendo returned like, no, we can still do it, and we're gonna make an awesome game. Like, I'm just pleasantly surprised that that even happened and that it took off the way that it did, because I just love Metroidvanias. Like, so to see Nintendo take it back on again is like, yeah, please more.
yes, yeah, absolutely. We are very much agreed on that. I don't know that when I saw it that I was like afraid that it wouldn't be as good. But I think it was also, I was just so in shock that it existed that it's like, okay, this existing is better than it not existing, just straight up. So I'm going to take what I can get, and we'll see when it comes out. And then it came out and it was really good because, Nintendo tends to try and hold a pretty high bar of quality. Not to say that they've never released a bad game, because they definitely have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
it wasn't this one.
Especially, I feel like this generation, like I feel like the Switch as a whole, with the exception of Pokemon, every time Nintendo's like, we're gonna release the next installment of one of our big franchises, like I feel like that's the story of the Switch, is they really thought about what made those games tick and got it right. Like if you're talking about Animal Crossing or Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild, like this generation in particular, it feels like they've really had a high bar on quality and what they want to do with their huge franchises.
I agree. I'm a pretty big Nintendo fan. I grew up mostly playing Nintendo and PlayStation stuff. So I buy the Nintendo console. I tend to buy the Sony console, and then I play everything else on PC pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the reason why is that Nintendo, uh, time after time after time after time, still releases high caliber, high quality things. So
Yeah.
I can't complain. I'm gonna hope that, I don't know if Dread, like, I say this like somehow I think Dread's sales numbers are like absolutely gonna determine whether or not we get another 2D style Metroid in the future. But like there was also like almost a 20-year gap between Fusion and Dread as it was. So who knows? When you said that, like, oh, can they even they had abandoned 2D Metroid, they had pretty much abandoned Metroid as a
Right.
franchise for a
Right.
while. Like theoretically, like you got those like DS Federation Force games that have like almost nothing to do with anything. Like it could have just not been a Metroid game, and it would have been like, okay.
Yep.
The only thing that those games have in common with Metroid is the fact that it has Metroid in the title.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Well, and I think too, not that rumor mills or anything to speak of, but I think there's probably a lot of good stock in the fact that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a launch title on whatever the next console is. So I actually think that Nintendo has really done a 180, and I think that Samus is going to be like one of their new big mascots. I think they're trying to put her up there with Linkus and Super Maria.
here's the thing. I hope so, because I think Samus is that cool and that the Metroid games are that good. But
Yep.
when you look at sales numbers, like Metroid is like literally an order of magnitude lower than a Zelda or a Mario or a
But
Mario
so much
or a
cooler.
Mario. Yeah, yeah. You know what Metroid games are better than? Most Zelda games.
Oh, dropping bombs on cryptic
And the
puzzles.
reason for that is because most Zelda games at this point are 3D, and most of those are bad. Anyway,
Dropping bombs.
yeah,
Dropping bombs.
one of these days we'll get there, maybe. But yeah,
I want to do, and I know I texted you about this, but I want to do maybe an episode on just like what the next 3D Zelda is going to be or what the future of Zelda is going to be, because thinking about what Tears of the Kingdom is and everything, I'm like, what are they going to do next? Nobody knows what they're going to do next.
That's true, because I never in a million years would have expected what Tears of the Kingdom became
Yeah.
to, to be basically. So,
And there's no 2D Zeldas in sight. I know there's a lot to talk about. I'm not trying to spoil my thoughts, but it's
yeah,
like a very interesting moment right now for what's going to happen to Linkus and Zelda.
yeah. I mean, and Mario for that matter. Honestly,
Oh,
Odyssey
I
came
know
out, and
what's
I figured
happening
there
with
was going to
Mario.
be like an Odyssey 2, and then there
Oh,
wasn't.
I know. I know what's happening with Mario, bro.
Yeah, what is it? He's gonna
I
he's
don't
gonna
know.
he's gonna meet up with Samus, and they're gonna kiss.
He's gonna become one of the Metroid
I'm gonna
and try and absorb her life
I'm gonna
force.
yeah I'm gonna take my action figures. I'm gonna push them together.
What if the next game was like in Mario Odyssey, he had like a little cappy with eyes, but what if his cap in the next game is just a Metroid?
I really thought that you were just about to suggest the design of Cappy like it was a new idea. I was gonna be like, Andy, hang on.
No, no. What if it was
He was
cappy,
like,
but it
what
was
if he
just
had a hat with eyes? Like,
no, I think it's gonna be a Metroid. Is gonna be his next cap. It's gonna have little stabby legs, and it's gonna suck his life force out.
I mean, that'd be cool.
I'd buy it. Day
Yeah,
one.
I would too. I don't know if Mario would, probably because he'd be dead. But
Yeah. So, all right. So, okay. I feel like this is a weird place to go, but do you want to talk about Fusion first, because this game is so clearly like a follow up to what Fusion was?
yeah. Let's honestly let's just do like a quick series recap and probably spend more time on Fusion because I think is that the one that you and I probably spent the most time with aside from Dread. At
Yeah.
least for
Yep.
me, it's definitely what I've spent the most time with. So
It is. Yeah. Same.
okay, all right. So
We're very
yeah,
much in
we
agreement
go
there.
all the way back to the regular Nintendo, back to 1980 something, whatever it was, or maybe the early 90s. I can't remember.
Metroid. It was the first game where you had to walk left first,
Yeah.
which sounds like not a big deal now, but at the time people were like, "You
Yeah,
gotta
people
go
are like, you have
left."
to go left instead of right, or you could go anyway, basically. It didn't tell you
No,
where to
you got
go.
trapped. You got trapped going right. You had to go left to get the power ball, the
Oh, yeah,
rolling
the
ball.
morph ball, yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, so as Andy mentioned earlier, the first Metroid was very primitive, pretty much just like almost like a proof of concept of the entire game style. Like
Yeah.
I assume there wasn't anything like it that existed at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and you start off with just your pitiful little short beam and no other things, and you go and you grab a morph ball, which lets Samus roll up into a little ball and go into tiny places and get through certain areas, and then you get more weapons and like I don't know if the screw attack is in the original game, but I know the space jump was at least, so that you could eventually basically just fly by infinitely jumping. Because yeah,
I think it is.
progression of stuff that you get in these games is always like you start off, you're like, all right, I'm a person with a gun basically, and then you're like, I am an entire army with superpowers.
Yep.
Yeah, by the end of it. So yeah, and then you go and you beat Mother Brain at the end of one, and
Shoot
then
some aliens, blow up the planet, get out of there.
yeah, get out of there. And then Metroid 2 was a Game Boy game, actually.
Yes.
The OG Game Boy. And that was you just go, and the idea was, hey, you have to finish off the Metroids on this planet. And so you go and you fight a bunch of regular ones and some more powerful ones. So you actually see like the different evolutions of a Metroid. Is there an Omega in the original, or was that only an AM2R?
No, you mean like the big queen one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a big queen, which was the final boss, as well as like some omegas too.
Yeah. Okay. So there's various evolutions of them. Nintendo hired Mercury Steam, who is the same developer of Metroid Dread, to make a 3DS remake of Metroid 2, which was generally well received. I think it was the first time that there had been a Metroid product that was anything other than like a Federation Force thing in a long time. So people were pumped about it, and I never
It's a
played
good
that
game.
one. Yeah, I heard it was good. Not the
Yep.
best Metroid game, but like a good, solid one. And I think it's mostly because Metroid 2 in itself is kind of a weird anomaly because it's a little bit less about exploration and finding different things. It's like, no, go to this place, kill the thing, you'll get some more abilities, and that'll let you go through. It's a little bit less open, at least in its
Yeah.
structure, which
It's
probably
it
makes sense because it was on the Game Boy, you know?
Yeah, it's honestly like a great concept for a game, and I think overall is generally considered a great game, but it's a great game that was held back by the fact that it was on the Game Boy. And so that's why like both of the remakes are great, because I think if you bring it to any modern platform and a modern way to play it, it's like, oh, this is a great concept that you're like going deeper into the planet and hunting the Metroids and they're getting more powerful. Like it's a great evolution and a great concept, but the actual original version is just not that playable nowadays.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mentioned AM2R, and I didn't say what that was. AM2R was a fan made remake of Metroid 2 done by I think pretty much just one guy, as a lot of
Yep.
those fan projects end up being. And it is very, 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 very good. It's made by a person who definitely understands very specifically what makes these games good and what makes them feel good to play mechanically. And in understanding both of those things, modified the map and layout of 2 and made it look a lot like more like a Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion style 2D pixel art thing rather than just on the Game Boy, and then released that. And Nintendo definitely cease and desisted him, but you can theoretically go find it on the internet. And if you like these games, I recommend that you do. AM2R is very good.
It's the best way to play Metroid 2, I think.
It's
Having played,
easily the best way to play 2.
yeah, it's the way to do it. If you've never played 2, but you like Metroid games, play AM2R. It's honestly just as good as any canon Metroid game, which is like a gift
Legitimately.
from God.
Yes. Yeah, it
Yes.
really is that good. So after that
Then there's
is,
Super.
yeah, Super Metroid, probably the most famous of all of them. To the point where I think Super Metroid is like the catalyst for the beginning of. It didn't become Metroidvania until Symphony of the Night came out, but Super Metroid as a game stylistically has basically laid the blueprint for every Metroidvania that has existed after it. It is the way. Like, if you needed to abstract out all of the things, and if I just basically was like, well, if I took away all the character names and everything, and I just generally described a video game that's in a Metroidvania style, it starts at Super Metroid because they would all sound exactly the same.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting that that all sort of happened retroactively. If I understand correctly, when Super came out, like it was received pretty well, but it didn't sell amazing. It wasn't like a game that people were raving about at the time. It was sort of in the next 10 years that it's sort of like how there are bands that like are musicians' favorite bands. It's kind of like Super Metroid is like game developers' favorite video game. Like so many it inspired many game developers to like think deeply about what they love in games and like make games in that style, but I don't think it was like a system seller or anything like that.
No, I don't think it was either. And so this is also where my perception of we were but children, we were but wee tykes when Super Metroid came out.
Yep.
So for all I know, maybe it actually was received pretty well, like publicly, but just video games were not as popular as they are now. And Metroid is a franchise, as I said before, it's like an order of magnitude less than Nintendo's most popular franchises. Like if a Metroid game sells like a few million copies, they're ecstatic. That's how it
Right.
works.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I'm with you on it's kind of incredible how you can pretty much trace all of it back to that game. Not to say that the groundwork hadn't kind of been laid out in the previous ones, but in terms of like here it is fully formed and fleshed out, Super Metroid's the game.
Yeah, it's definitely the blueprint. But like again, it's like crazy that it sort of happened after the fact. Like decades later people were like, "Well, we point to this game now even though it wasn't a smash hit, it's had such a deep legacy.
Yeah, it's genuinely one of the most important games like ever created, like easily.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
yeah,
So then we have Fusion, which came out on the Game Boy Advance, which is Metroid 4, which was like sort of a twist and like the next step. It's it's definitely like a different direction from the way that Super has went, like in a way that it actually wasn't received that well always. I think Fusion is an incredibly good game, and I will die on that hill. I
Uh,
think you and me both.
I was gonna say, here's the interesting part is normally when we get into these kinds of conversations, we'll both feel strongly but differently about a certain thing. But you and I think, are pretty much in 100% agreement on this one, where Super Metroid it's very open. It gives you very little direction and pretty much expects you to just go and poke around everywhere, which is, I think, part of why we still talk about it so much, because
Yeah.
more modern games are starting to adopt that philosophy as well. Whereas Fusion, while you do have some choices and you can do some sequence break stuff like you can in all these other games if you're good enough with the abilities, Fusion's a lot more linear, and it actively tells you go over here. And then you go, okay, well, I have this ability, and then you'll encounter the thing that would have stopped you from getting to that area on the way there. So you get a lot less of the open exploration stuff. But, and this is where I think you and I might agree, I think Fusion feels the best to jump around and shoot, and the abilities, they all feel in my hand.
Yeah.
I think the best of, I'm gonna say all of them, to be honest with you. Like, don't get me wrong,
I
we came here to talk about Dread. I get it.
I'm so
I get
torn
it.
about it.
But
I'm so
and
torn
and
about
there's
it.
maybe nostalgia talking here for me, but normally I would have expected that if I picked up the controller playing Dread, I would have immediately gone, this game feels better than Fusion. A game that I played legitimately dozens of times at this point.
Fusion.
It was my
Okay.
first Game Boy Advance game. I went to the store, I bought the Game Boy Advance and the Metroid Fusion card at the same time. I went home and I popped that bad boy in. It's my first Metroid game. I was like 10 years old or whatever. That changed my life. It was insane.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that's why people like these games? Holy crap.
Yeah. Well, and okay, in terms of how Metroid Fusion feels, it feels amazing to the point where like I think I played Fusion and I played Zero Mission both when I was like a kid and I loved them. And
Mm,
then years later, like maybe when I was 21 or 22, I played Super because so many people loved it and raved about it, and it was really hard for me to play Super at first because in my head I didn't have the language to describe this when I was 10, but like in my head the thing about Metroid I thought was that it was about a game that feels really good and is fun to play and shoot and kill things and feels amazing because Fusion and Zero Mission feel unbelievably good, where like Super is just not about that, at least not in the same way. So
yes.
I think you and we sort of like learned what we love about Metroid from the other end.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
I have since come around on Super. I adore that game. But like yeah, I agree with you. I think the thing that makes Fusion and Zero Mission so good is just that there's just the most fun games to play. Like
Hmm.
um and I think as much as people take issue with the linearity, um I think that those games are not that much more linear than Super when you really look at how the ways that you can move through Super and the way that you're intended to move through them.
Hmm.
It's just that in Super Metroid, there's not a guy telling you, and it doesn't feel as explicit. Like there's a
Yes.
more invisible hand guiding you. But like at the end of the day, like I think they do a lot of great things with that because in Metroid Fusion, first of all, there's tons of secrets to find off the beaten path because it's a huge fun world to explore. But like
Hmm.
they also toy with that structure. Like very often in Metroid Fusion, Adam is like, you need to go to this area to unlock this thing. And like on the way there, you can't get there. And then on your way back, like the elevator breaks down and you have to like bust through a secret path and you end up fighting a boss that nobody knew was there. And like I think they have a lot of fun with the quote unquote linear structure of that game. Like the fact that it's different, I think it's just as much Metroid as the other games. And I think it's one of the strengths of that game is how well they do it.
I completely agree with you on all those fronts. I don't really have anything to add on that particular topic, to be honest with you.
We're such
Yeah,
bros.
you
We're such
really,
bros.
yeah, you really nailed that one. The only other
Yes.
thing that I'll say when it comes to the differences between Fusion and Super. So when I say Fusion feels the best to me, so this is also where I assume that someone in the world would probably think that what I'm saying is sacrilegious because I think there's a pretty wide gap between people who feel strongly about the way that Super Metroid jumps feel and the way that everything after Super Metroid jumps feel because they are way heavier after Super Metroid. You have a
Wait, wait,
lot,
wait.
yeah,
Oh, wait, wait. Okay. I love the way Metroid Super Metroid feels now. I have an appreciation for it, but there are people that are still like, no, Super feels way better.
yes.
Still?
Hmm.
That's crazy.
Well, because theoretically, you also have a little bit more freedom of movement with the way that those mechanics work too. Like if you're really good, so those
True, it's
people
true.
who are like they're like really into their Super Metroid, yeah, they look at that as a negative of the new ones because they go, I can't do the same things that I used to be able to do because they
Hmm.
designed the game differently. And I can't argue with that. But I don't play those games that way.
Yeah.
So when it comes to I'm just gonna jump up the platforms in this vertical hallway, basically, I prefer the way that Fusion and Zero Mission and those games play compared to Super, which is again you have a lot of control, but it's inherently floatier, and that's part of why you have
Hmm.
more control. And I just don't like floaty feeling jumps in general. That is a me personally in video games overall, not just Metroid thing. So
Yeah. I have grown a real appreciation for Super Metroid. Like I think I do love the way that game feels now. I like the floaty platforming at times and like I like that it feels like a slower pace than something like Fusion like because you're floaty and you're slow like you kind of get into the mindset of like you're grinding slowly through the world but like I don't know. I don't think it doesn't feel as actiony as like like I think they both have strengths, but like I would definitely lean towards something like Fusion any day, even though I do like Super Metroid now.
they are both wonderful games that have different strengths. And I think that's
Yeah,
why that there is a preference for either one because they're both very good at the thing that they're doing. They're just not doing the exact same thing. They're the framework of everything that's in there real similar. Some of the specifics is where people are going to start to have their oh well I like this one over this one, you know.
yeah. Well, and honestly, like kudos to Nintendo for like really messing with the formula in a way that's interesting but still really good. Like, and I think you and I are also pretty similar on the front that like I don't know, like maybe the floaty jumps are better for what Super is going for. Like I think you have to take a game on its merit. Like what is good about this particular game? It doesn't make sense to compare Super Metroid to like a point and click adventure game. Like you have to take each game on what is this game doing really well. And
Yep.
Super Metroid is doing exploration really well and Fusion is doing punch the guys really well.
Yeah, I so I'm gonna we'll eventually we're gonna need to tie this into Dread itself because I think the evolution of the mechanics is probably the most
Oh
interesting part of
yeah.
Dread. But just so you're I was made aware of this only very recently. There is a ROM hack of Super Metroid that changes the mechanics to feel more like Fusion.
I
And
think I did know this.
I'm real curious if that makes that game feel better or worse to me for the exact same reason that you just said, right?
Hmm.
Is does having that style of physics in Super Metroid make Super Metroid a better game because it feels better in my hand personally, or does it make it a worse game because the game wasn't designed around that style of platforming? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd have to try it. So, you know, food for thought.
Interesting.
That's where I think the whole alignment of the game feel in your hands versus other game design philosophies and blah blah blah. That's where I start to lose track of like I don't know how those intermeshing might make me feel. The only way I would figure it out is to play it, and that's why I don't design video games.
Right. You just talk about them on the
Yeah,
internet.
I just go on the internet and talk into a microphone, and yeah, let's watch
Yeah.
Samus take out this alien with the side shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
Okay,
she's
so yeah,
so
so let's
cool.
let's talk about the oh dude, she's so cool. We're gonna get way into it. But let's talk about the SAX, which I can't believe we didn't yet, and how that ties to Dread.
Yeah.
Um Talk about the SAX, Tomas.
Yep. So I mentioned earlier in Fusion. So in Fusion, Samus had a different power suit because I mentioned at the beginning she was infected with this parasite, of an alien parasite called the X, and it infects her in her power suit, and so they basically like surgically like burn off most of the suit to stop it from killing her. And then they inject her with a manufactured Metroid vaccine that gives her Metroid DNA. That's not how genetics work, but video games, it's fine. And the Metroid DNA allows her to absorb the remaining X in her body. And it also makes it so that now, if there's an X parasite in the real world, she will just suck it up and get stronger from it. So it's pretty much turned Samus into like one. She was already one of the most dangerous beings in the universe. Now she's one of the most dangerous beings in the universe, and she technically has Metroid powers, which is
Which is
crazy.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is like in Fusion in particular, they don't make you feel powerful for that. They make you feel very weak
Yeah,
because now you're vulnerable to ice. Yeah.
yes, yeah. So yeah, and that's another thing is because Metroids are weak to ice. Now this is a new vulnerability that Samus has not had before. Is low temperatures. Before there's always the Varia suit, which lets you go in extreme environments, which is typically like a lava area that's super hot. But even in Dread, you do the same thing, but because she's got Metroid DNA, you get your extreme temperature suit, and then you go into a cold room, and your health starts dropping, and it tells you to
Yep.
leave.
Yep.
So it is a fundamental shift for what they've done with Samus as a character. But the whole
Hmm.
reason why I brought up that entire thing again is Andy mentioned this thing called the SAX, and the SAX was all
A
the
deadly
X.
saxophone.
It's true. It's not true. That's not what it is at all. Is a set of the X parasites that had infected Samus's power suit. Basically, after they pulled the power suit off of her and threw all the parts in a corner, the X pulled all the parts together and went,
They
"I'm a
in,
Samus now because I."
they infected
Yeah.
they
So
infected John Coltrane
yep.
and
And he went and he played Giant Steps.
love how you actually did giant steps and I did the Metroid theme song.
Yeah. Anyway, um,
I'm
so
sorry.
so yeah, so you are Samus, who has had all of her powers removed because they just pulled all of her suit stuff off of her, and now there is an evil alien parasite with no emotions that has all of Samus's previous powers walking around the ship. So you have effectively like a Resident Evil Nemesis or Mr. X style thing that every now and then the SAX will enter a room and some horrifying music starts playing and you can't kill it and you have to run. It's the
And
only
it will
thing that you can
super
do.
kill
It
you.
will super kill you because it's got an ice beam. And you know what the ice beam does? It freezes you and it hurts a lot. So
Yeah.
you are running from a copy of yourself for a bunch of the game. And this isn't like every room or something. It's not like you enter a room and you have to be worried about it every time. But it does show up at weird times every now and then, which is
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
and like again this is like something that speaks to the strength of the linearity because like they pretty purposefully put the SAX at like these scripted moments in the story of like you're trapped in this particular place and the only way to escape this particular sector is through this hallway and you get stuck with the SAX. And so like I think at the end of the day they have a lot of fun with the structure of like the world and your exploration through it. But like I really the core thing about it is that there's this at the heart of it there is this horror element that's been injected into Metroid, which leads us to the follow-up that is the Emmy, which is like and actually the Emmy was like the whole thing of like in Fusion we want to do the Emmy and this concept has been around forever. But I believe the reason the development got delayed so far is because they were like, what we want to do with the Emmy, we can't do on the Nintendo DS or the Wii U, like the current hardware. The reason this one went forward is because they were like, we can finally do what we want to do with the technology available to us.
I feel like post Game Boy Advance, they probably could have done something like the Emmy because I don't really think that there's anything super crazy technically challenging from a hardware perspective about them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just
Maybe.
don't understand
Maybe.
how any of
Yeah.
it works. But regardless, yes, I'm with you on the. I would argue that Metroid has always kind of been at least a little bit in the sci-fi space horror theme kind of thing. Like some of the monsters, like recurring boss monsters like Kraid and Ridley are pretty gnarly looking. Ridley
Sure. Yeah.
especially. And there's the
Yeah.
whole space pirate faction that exists throughout this series, and they're also pretty nasty too. But there's nothing that really goes for the uh, something enters a room and your first reaction is oh no until the
I'm gonna
SAX.
die.
Yes.
Yeah, because really every terrifying enemy like Kraid or whatever is just a boss
Yeah, and then
that
you go
you
and you
have
beat
to
him up, and you're
overcome.
like, "Yeah, I did it because I'm the world's or the universe's greatest bounty hunter." But then
Right.
the SAX walks in and goes, "That's me, but stronger," and you have to
Yeah.
run because you can't beat it. Like you literally cannot damage the SAX. And
Yep.
now jumping to as you said before with the Emmys, so in Dread, there is no SAX. We do know that there are X parasites on this new planet. That is the whole pretense of why Samus is called to this planet to begin with. Because at the end of Fusion, you blow up the ship that theoretically has the remainder of the X on there. And then years and years and years, both in real life and in game, go by. And then Samus gets a video of an X from another planet and is asked to go there and check it out.
Yep.
So when she gets there, she gets ambushed by a Chozo, who we thought were all
Bird guy.
yeah, Birdman, who we thought were all dead. And we find out that he gets called Ravenbeak eventually.
Yes.
And because he's a Chozo guy in a suit, he's also got a whole lot of Samus's powers, like a cool arm cannon and blah blah blah. So he goes and he beats the crap out of you in the beginning, and then Samus blacks out and wakes up and her suit's a different color, and she lost all her powers.
And you're like, wow, they really did the we're losing all our powers thing
Yeah,
again.
except it's just even more like normally there's like a and then she got like smacked in the head with a banana and you watch like some sparklies fly out of her or something. But this
Yep.
one is like you wake up and your powers are just gone. You're like, oh man.
Yep. And you go to the first communication room and he's like, oh man, looks like all your powers are gone,
Yeah, I go,
dude.
oh,
And
I
she's
can't
like,
believe that happened
really?
again.
Really?
You're
He's
gonna
like,
have to
wow, it
get those.
only
Yeah, just like you're gonna have to get those back. Like, oh yeah, is that what I'm gonna have to do in this video
yeah.
game?
Yeah, again, wow. He's like, you really should stop landing on any planet because it seems like as soon as you touch down, you lose all of your
You should find an
capabilities.
easier, better paying job. That's all I'm saying.
Y- Yeah,
It's
for
pretty
real.
pretty much where I'm at with it.
I hear the post office is hiring.
Yeah, potentially. Um, so
um,
so she wakes up and one of the first things that you encounter in the game is this thing called, and we're calling them Emmys, but it's I don't remember what it stands for, but it's an acronym for a big scary robot where they sent 7 of them down to this planet to try and contain the X, and they found that they've basically gone rogue at this point, and that they were sent for like they'll go and they'll kill something, they'll take like a biological sample or whatever.
yep.
So these big literally invincible things, as far as your gear is concerned, that will stalk around a kind of a patrol area that they have. They just call them Emmy zones, and you have to avoid them stealthily. Or if they see you, you're gonna have to run the same way you would with the SAX. And the thing is, if they catch you, you have 2 very quick chances to do a parry move at a very, very, very specific like few frames window. It's very tight timing and it's not telegraphed very well, so you'd have to like practice it, and it also seems kind of random, so I don't really know how you'd ever be good at it. But it's an instant death. So basically, if you get caught, the expectation is that you try again because you're gonna die. Like
Right.
you can escape if you're really good at that parry move, but that's not gonna like even though I think I'm pretty good, I've escaped those Emmys in one chase like multiple times in a row, and then it would get me on like the 3rd try or something like that. It's
I
not
think
a good way
nobody's
to
good
go
at it.
about it. Yeah.
I think even speedrunners are like it's basically RNG and you get 2 chances, but like
Yep.
there is technically a telegraph, but it seems like they worked really hard to make it random so that nobody can get good at the escape, which is neat and like I think is great from a game design perspective for a number of reasons.
Hmm.
Um but yes, there's no it's like you might get away but pretty much you're going to die.
Yeah, it was. I think the choice was either not have that mechanic in there at all and have it be extra frustrating when it touches you and you just know for sure that you're dead, or they make it easier and then it's actually not a threat because you can just
Right.
do it every time. So I think honestly they kind of nailed it.
They
I
did.
I wouldn't
Because
have thought that I would have liked something like this, but I really did.
I love it. Because here's the thing about horror in video games is like the only scary part of a video game is before you get caught, because if you just get caught and it's a fail state, then whatever it is that's stalking you isn't scary anymore. It just means it's a fail state and you have to retry.
Yes.
So all of the horror is in the tension that happens before you get caught and before you hit the fail state, and I think they really understood that, because everything that makes the Emmy terrifying is about that tension before you die.
Yep. Yeah, and you
And
have a
by
number of ways to get away from it too, and it's very obvious where the thing is. Shows up on the mini map. It's got a giant like vision cone. You can also see when it's pinging for sound because it can hear you. It shows you when you got heard, so you know that you need to start moving or do something different. So
Yep.
yeah, you are constantly faced with, all right, I have ways to get away from this thing. I just need to be sure that I'm doing this and I can get from this spot in the room to the other spot in the room that I got to get to without it shoving a like weird drill syringe thing into my face and killing me instantly.
I love the Emmy. I think it's the coolest thing about this game. I
I
adore
agree.
it. And I'm so shocked that you do. We're very on the same wavelength with Metroid right now, and I love it. But dude, I will tell you, when I bought this game, the day I played it, I was in the Emmy room, and like again, like I kind of knew going in, like, oh, anything that's scary is just a fail state, and nothing in video games really like scares me in that way. I knew the Emmy were supposed to be scary, but like, dude, when I saw them, like my first couple encounters running away, like I was legit like sweating in my house at this thing chasing me. And I was like, I can't believe I'm scared right now by the, like, they're so unsettling. Like, I think the most obvious thing is that they're huge, and the
Yep.
way that they move is so freaky. Like, you always have the sense, because they're twice as big as you, that like at any moment they can just wrap around a corner weird and just grasp you with their crazy long arms. So like you
Because they
always feel
do. It's not.
exposed.
It's no. That's not like a. Oh, it's like they can. It's no. That
Right.
will happen. Like if you sit at a spot where it has to go around a corner that's only big enough for you to morph ball through, it'll squeeze through the hole and then corner and squeeze through the other hole and chase you. And
Yeah.
like to a point where
Yeah.
it will beat you at making that corner. So you better be moving because as soon as he comes
Yeah.
out, you're gonna die unless you unless you get going. Yeah. So because
Yeah.
they stay real low to the ground and their weird legs come up super high when they walk and are on all
Ugh.
fours. Yeah. They're just
They're
weird.
so
Yeah,
unsettling.
they're just weird, and I agree with you that I think they're the coolest new introduction in this game by far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because and this isn't really to take away from Jed because we've been talking up how good Metroid is on the rest of it. So there's that, and you know what? I take back what I said on the Emmys being the best thing. The actual best thing, I already mentioned the word. The best thing in the entire game is the fact that you have a parry button.
Oh, you think so?
That's the best addition to the entire game because that's the thing that allows you to fight off the enemies. That's the thing that allows you to fight off certain specific enemies who have telegraphed attacks and give you more thing. Because there's nothing better in video games mechanically than a parry and a counter. A really good feeling
Yeah.
parry and a counter. This is a me thing. A good parry and a counter is like my absolute favorite mechanical thing in games. And this isn't
Yeah.
my absolute favorite parry, but the fact that I can be Samus, who's always had all these cool guns and stuff, and now when an enemy dashes at me, I can smack him away and then shoot a counter shot at him and get more items in return because of it. There
Yeah.
was no way to make Samus more intimidating or scary except for that, and they did it.
Yeah, it definitely, and that's like a Mercury Steam thing that they added to the 3DS version of Metroid 2, that like
Oh, that's
that
right. It
you
was in the 2 remake first. I forgot about that.
it was. Yep, and that I think that move, you are so right, has injected so much life into like Samus's capabilities. And by the way, too, they did it so much better in this game because in I won't go into a whole diatribe, but like it wasn't that great in Samus Returns because you just did it constantly. You had to stop when you did it, and it was the best option in any combat situation. So in that whole game, you just constantly were like, I'm gonna walk 5 feet, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna parry. I'm gonna walk 5 feet, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna parry. I'm gonna walk 5 feet, I'm
Mm,
gonna stop. And in
okay.
this game, like it's great, but you can do it like while you run across a room, which will do damage to
I
enemies.
was
And
just
it's
gonna
like,
say, it was like there's a running parry move that is
yep,
designed specifically so that you can hit an enemy with it and use it as an attack, not just as a parry. So
yep,
yeah, it's
yes,
really good. Yeah, I didn't play the Samus Returns remake, so I didn't know that it was that different. That makes a lot of sense because I remember people being
yeah,
like, "Oh, they bringing back the parry? I don't know about that." And then it came out and it was different, and then went, "Oh yeah, parry's a good thing." Like, yep, sure
yeah.
is.
Yeah, so they learned what made it great. But like I think overall, honestly, I think the best thing about this game, the best introduction is none of those things. I think it's just well, it's really all of Samus's new abilities, but I really think it's her movement and the way that you move through this game with your slide and your super fast and your agile jumps and your parries all integrated. Like just playing this game just feels like butter, my guy. Like it feels
It
so
does.
good.
Yeah, and this is all right. I'm gonna say maybe the one thing that you and I are gonna disagree on in this whole episode here.
Let's go. Let's
The
go, son.
the one thing that I wish they didn't do. There's one change that I don't think it's. Oh, he's very close to the camera.
I'm
Nice.
getting close.
He's real close.
Getting close.
It's ASMR hour now.
I'm getting
Talking
closer to
about
the mic too so they can feel how close I am
talking
to the
about
camera.
Metroid Dread on February 23rd in the year of our Lord
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
2024.
All right, what's the thing you don't like?
I don't think there should be a free aim
Really? Why not?
because I prefer the old school method of I walk to an area and I hit L or whatever and she points her arm 45 degrees in the air.
I
I
like it better
I
too.
personally prefer that a lot compared
I
to
like
the
it.
I can't because I can't move and shoot diagonally easily without needing to stop at I have to
Yes.
stop to aim precisely now. Whereas before I would basically lock in a 45-degree angle and I would just move left and right to where I wanted to shoot. And that's how I
Yes.
would prefer to shoot in a Metroid game. And this one doesn't let me do that. And that is the one thing in this game, Andy, that frustrated me so much. I think that is the specific reason why in my head I prefer fusion.
See,
That's
well,
like literally the only reason.
first of all, I agree that it's better. And at first, it was like a thing. That never stuck with me as something that bothered me. So I'm surprised it stuck with you.
It
But I
bothered
think
me
the
the
only,
entire game.
huh? Yeah.
The
Well,
whole game.
I think the question is, could they do that with the lack of available buttons? Because she has so many abilities now that I don't think there are two buttons left for you to hold and aim. Is
Uh
my only thing.
I have a simpler solution.
Okay.
You hit the start button, you go into a menu. It says aiming style. Free, classic.
That's
It changes your left bumper to either the new one, which is what it is now, or the old school one, and that's it. And you're done.
it, well, and that's fair. I still think that doesn't solve the problem of you might not have enough buttons because there was always one that aimed up and one that aimed down. You're saying you want one that just aims up?
Was there one that aimed up and down, or was it that
Yeah.
you held? I thought you would hold it. I'd have to think about it. Because you might be right. Was it no? Because you wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to aim up and down in fusion because you had
No,
to
and
use because you only had one L and one R in fusion, and
yeah,
R was for
and
missiles and L was for aiming, and you could go up or down depending on if you tapped up or down, and it would
oh,
hold it in place.
am I thinking of Super
I
then
think you're thinking
maybe?
of super.
Well, here, okay, that's fair. The other thing, though, too, is I actually think here's my theory, and I can't prove this, but I think if you went through the game like that, when I'm thinking now about the many bosses and many encounters in this game, I think you would be much less successful and you would turn that mode off because when I think of specific bosses, I think it's just like the points that you have to hit them are moving so quickly that it would be impossible to pull it off successfully
You might be
or
right.
easily.
Well, here's the thing: as excuse me, as we mentioned before, like if with the Super Metroid ROM hack that plays like Fusion, right?
Hmm.
Because the game wasn't originally designed with this thing in mind, does it make it worse in ways that you didn't anticipate? And yeah, are those bosses designed to be able to work with an aiming system like that? I mean, probably not realistically, right? They probably went in with like, okay, every player will at least have these things before they walk in this room. What can we make the boss? And one of those things is just your fundamental mechanics, which would include the free aim, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So I think
But I
there is an
agree with you
alternate
that,
universe where Metroid Dread has the old school style aiming, and it's like, at least for
and
me,
it's an option.
like a full point better. And this
Yeah,
and it's not an actual true negative of the game. It is only because I have
a
a
preference.
specific frame of reference and a specific personal preference. That is it. This probably won't
I
bother almost anyone else. I'm probably like one of 100 psychos in the world who feels this way.
Yeah, well, and especially because I did feel that way when I started the game, and I changed my tune probably in like 7 minutes. So, but I agree. Why not give people the option? And I think that's something that's a pretty valid gripe about this game overall. Is there are so many buttons, and there are no options to change any of the buttons, which is like such a travesty for like accessibility people that may need to change the buttons.
Yeah, that's a weird
It's a weird
Nintendo
Nintendo thing.
yeah. So this isn't me trying to defend Nintendo on this front because I completely agree with you. I think it's ridiculous that literally any video game on any system has anything other than fully customizable controls. Even if you don't have
Yes.
like really crazy accessibility options, I should be able to make it so that if I hit this button, it does this thing
Yeah, I
in any
agree.
game. That is just a fundamental thing. I assume that the reason why Nintendo doesn't do that with their games is because in the Switch main menu, you can remap buttons at the system level. Like I can make my left trigger be my A button if I want to. I just can. And that is true across everything on the console. So my assumption is that someone in a
Wait,
room
really?
yeah, did you not know this? Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
this.
you can. So my assumption is that someone somewhere probably went, "Oh, well they can just do it on the console if they want to." And they don't bother with the feature,
Oh,
which I
that
think is a
see
dumb
that.
way to do it. That's cuz it's not I don't I don't want to do that and then have it not work for a different video game. I should be able to do that on an individual game basis no matter what. So, again, I don't think it's a good answer, but I'm assuming that that is probably during development in this game. If that conversation was had, somebody went, it doesn't matter. They could, if they really wanted to, they will.
You know what? You've convinced me to take the other side. No, I think that's perfectly acceptable because I think the people that really need that option are people with some sort of physical disability, and if you have a physical disability, you probably know that already in the settings.
Probably,
So,
but you should still make it easier. Because that doesn't just benefit people with actual disabilities or accessibility issues. It benefits the average player too. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit like if you know you can do that in the system level, you're welcome to do it. But yeah, but yes, it is definitely a thing that's like a lot of people are like, why not? And it is a little bit like, yeah, why not?
yeah,
Um, so yes, so there's the Emmys and they're terrifying and they're awesome. I don't even remember what train we went down here. Oh,
uh,
you were talking about the parry and the movement and the whatevers.
yeah.
Yeah, but
And aiming.
here
That's where we got there from. Yeah,
it's hard for me to say which game I like better, Fusion or this game, but I think this game of any game I've ever played, of all the any of the games of any all of the any game I've ever played, this one feels the best,
that
hands
was
down.
wow. That was
I
I. You said
of
you
any of
you
all,
you John Madden a sentence so hard that John Madden would have been like, "Yo, what did he just say?"
I of all of the any of the games, Dude, I've beaten this game like 12 times. I never turn on this game to play it and start moving and don't go, oh my God, that feels amazing. Like, I stop to say it out loud every time I pick up this game. And that's maybe, I don't know if this one's my favorite or Fusion is, but that I think in itself is such a feat in my personal life that I love it so much for that alone. I think this game feels so good to play every moment, constantly.
Yeah, I agree that it feels really good. I think, in a weird way, I don't. It's definitely nostalgia talking for me. Probably still liking Fusion as my favorite, and because I only played this once recently, I don't have the like, oh, I know this game like the back of my hands in my head. Where I definitely be like, oh yeah, this one's my favorite. I think if I spent more time with this one, it would probably become my favorite because I assume I would also eventually get over the free aim thing and just accept it as part of this game, which, I have, but it still is just like I have a preference in my head and I didn't play the game long enough for that preference to leave me. So, but you are
Right.
correct in saying that like everything else, like it doesn't have the Super Metroid floaty style jumps. It's got weightier feeling. I know very definitively I'm gonna go up in this arc and come down over here. And the jump feels good, and wall jumping is easier than it's ever been before you get the space jump.
The Aeon dash feels amazing. The like super fast zippy
I
dash.
the flash step, that's the other best part of this
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
cool.
you know why? You know how cool it is? It's so cool that I forgot I had it for half the game. Because I assumed that it's just like every time I would do it almost on accident. I'd be like, I forgot I can do that.
Yeah, it feels so good.
Yeah, there's flash steps are also high tier ability in literally any form of anything anywhere. If you
Yes.
if you see somebody basically teleport from one spot to the next and there's like a bluish glow between the spots and you're like, "Whoa, how do you move that fast?" I'm like, "Yes. That
Yep.
that person, they're cool. I'm in."
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk specifically about the linearity and or lack thereof present in this game. How did you feel as a Metroid fan about how linear or not this game was in you playing it?
This game is definitely not linear in my opinion. And the reason for that is so you mentioned before with Adam and Fusion kind of telling you where to go. Um, you get that in this one. It's the same guy actually.
Yeah, sort of. Sort of. I mean, he like tells you vaguely what your objective is.
Theoretically before the reveal that
Oh my
it
god.
was never Adam.
My
It was
god.
the bad guy the whole time. Um, so that's happening, but the amount of other stuff that exists for you to explore and go through in Dread compared to Fusion is so much greater that it inherently cannot be as linear even if it's got the same beats because it gives you more stuff to explore and does not make you. And
Yeah,
I finished the game with under 50% item completion.
that's pretty shocking. You must not have went back like at all.
No, I didn't, and because I what here's the other. This is my only other knock on the game. It ends very suddenly,
Yeah, it does sneak up on
very
you.
suddenly. Like
Well,
you
actually,
see you get the bad guy reveal, and you go into the next room, and then you fight him, and then the game's over.
wait. So you didn't feel like as it was happening, like yo, this is definitely the final battle. Like as you were heading up into the
I
top.
mean, I did, but I was expecting like one more little section beat after that because I was like, all right, I'm gonna get real close to the end, and then maybe I'll go run some cleanup. Because like I wasn't, as you know, I have been really just entrenched in a backlog of all the games that I've wanted to play because man oh man did a lot of games that were really good come out in 2023. One of these days I'll get to Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know when. A Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's coming out in less than a week, and then Dragon's Dogma 2 is also coming out, and then whatever we're gonna play for this podcast that I may have to replay, and then I still have to play Baldur's Gate 3, Yeah, anyway, so I wasn't like, I'm going to sit down and 100% Metroid Dread for this podcast. It was, I'm going to play this game so I can finally play it and enjoy it. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'll probably go run some cleanup until I go, like, yeah, I'm done with this game. And then I went and I walked into the next room, and then it began basically the end sequence of the game. And so when I finished it, I was like, oh, all right, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I know. And I know what was in store for me if I went back to explore. The same thing that's been in every other Metroid game that is also awesome. I'm gonna run around. I'm gonna go into a room and go, I can't believe that thing's over there. And then I'm gonna find a new power up, and it's gonna feel awesome. Because
Yep.
you get the power bombs, which would be like your best tool for just like making it obvious which way you got to go. Aside from like, oh yeah, they have like the item finder visor thing. I forgot about that in this one.
Yeah, it's an Aeon ability.
Yeah, I forgot about
Yep.
that. Well, anyway, previously, before stuff like that in the games existed, I would just walk into a room and drop a power bomb and
Right.
see what happened. And you get the power bombs, and you get like two of them, and then like 5 minutes pass, and then you're at the end. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Literally.
unbelievable how late they gave the power bombs. I was like, I didn't even use them. There's
Yep.
like one door you open, and
Right.
then you're
Yep.
at the end. So that's
Yeah.
really my only like dig at the game. And it's not really a bad thing. Like, it had to end somewhere, and I think it was mostly I was enjoying myself and not expecting it to end. So when it happened, I was like, okay. I guess we're done now.
Yeah.
Which, it's not a terrible thing, but it's also just like I don't know. I kind of wish that there was a bigger run to the end, because it starts to happen, and then it's just like done and you're there.
And you're just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So the reason I wanted to talk about the linearity of this game is because, like, this game has done a full 360 on what people thought about it linearly. And, like, I think, like, a lot of things in this game, they really walked the tightrope of the perfect middle ground, because I felt like, as someone who plays Metroidvanias a lot, I felt like this game was really linear and like holding my hand every step I went, because every time you get a new upgrade in this game, they purposefully spit you out into a room where you're like, "Oh, hey, I can go that way now." And like, if you replay this game, you will notice that every single upgrade is followed immediately by a room that's like, "Oh, hey, I can use the morph ball bombs now." And I think they do that really well for people who haven't played a lot of Metroidvanias. But for me, who's someone who played it, I was like, man, they're really like shuffling you directly down the corridor to the next spot. I thought that until I finished this game and was like, I'm going to start a new game and 100% it because I like it that much. And I immediately did. And without trying to do anything, I just found myself like on completely different paths from the first game all of the time. Like, the first time I went through this game, there's a little section towards the end, right before the final Emmy encounter, where like I think you're intended to have the spinny laser dash, what's it called? The screw
Screw
attack.
attack. Yeah.
And the first time I played this game, like, I did that whole section without the screw attack. Like, I didn't mean to, but like, clearly the path that was like, oh, you should go back and get the screw attack now, I just missed it and did it in a different order. And honestly, every time I've replayed this game, I felt that way in some capacity. Like, this time I recently replayed it for our show, I got to Kraid with only like 2 energy tanks, and I was like,
Oh
I'm
man.
sorry, I guess I low percented this game on accident. Like, I didn't mean to. I thought I did the same progression that just felt natural to me. And I ended up at Kraid with like 2 energy tanks, and I was like, whatever, let's do it. And like, I don't know, it's really deceptively linear. But then people immediately were like, oh, hey, in Kraid's boss room, there is specifically a way that you can kill him early if you got the power bombs early.
Yep.
Like, the developers put it in there, and
Yep.
people were like, oh,
Oh.
this
Yep.
game isn't as linear as I thought it was. So, like, I don't know. They perfectly nailed the dance again
I
of,
see. That is probably the biggest design strength of Dread specifically compared to the other ones, because I'm also gonna walk back to your first comment on, oh yeah, well, you get the power and then it immediately puts you in a spot where you gotta do that. They done that in every one of these games. every single one of these games does that. They
Well,
give you a
they
new
always
they
put
give you a
you.
new thing, and then they immediately make you use it to get to a new area.
Well, right. They put you in a room where you have to use it, but usually you come out into a section and you have to like travel backwards somewhere
Mm.
to find the next area really to progress. Usually in this game, they spit you out into a room that leads you to the next place you're supposed to go. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I see. It's not just use it. It's use it and it's forward progress.
Yes, they
I see.
usually put you immediately in like a forward progress position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It no, but I still agree with you on those fronts because I could feel the points in the game where I was wandering because I'm gonna be honest with you, I did a lot of just wandering without trying to listen to Adam or anything like that just because I wanted to see where things were. And obviously based on my item completion percent, it wasn't because I was hunting for items. I just wanted to go see what enemies were in what areas and stuff because I thought the world design and just the layout of everything was super cool. So when I would regularly see the like go over there, I would look on my map and be like, "But what about the spot over here I didn't fill in at all yet?"
See, here's another thing. Does he actually tell you where to go? I thought he vaguely was just like, you got to find a way to cool down the planet or something.
It depends. Sometimes it's like go in this section for this thing, and other times it
Oh.
yes, because you're like, oh yeah, go turn on the whatever thermal regulator thing, and he doesn't really say exactly where it is, but based on like what had happened in the previous rooms or something giant on the map. Like when it's a room that's hot, all the rooms are red. When it's a room that's cold, all the rooms are blue. And when he's like, you gotta go change the thing over here, and then he goes, you have to change the temperature regulator thing, and you look at the map at all the rooms that are red and blue near each other. You go, okay, it's probably over there. It's probably over there.
I think that's still you inferring though, because I don't think I ever. I think in this whole game, every time I've ever read his dialogue, he's like, "Samus, you got to do blah blah blah." I'm like, "Cool, let me just open this door and just walk that." Like I've never really put together that he was actually trying to. The game was like, "You should go here next."
I think it's yeah. I think it's more of a suggestion. It's not as in your face as
Yeah,
some
it's
other
like
things would
Fusion.
be. Yeah, yeah. Fusion literally opens the map and puts a marker on it, and then
Yeah,
points you to where it and like scrolls through the map in the general like overall path of how you would get there. And
yeah,
the good news with Fusion is it usually had like actual meaningful obstacles in the way, or like you said before, you'd get to an area and then like a bridge would explode or something. You got to find another way around that was different than what you
yeah.
were told. But you still were like, I have to go right here for the next thing to
Right.
happen, which this game doesn't
Yeah.
do. It is
No,
a
it
little bit more general than that.
yeah, it to me it really feels like the level of exploring a game like Super Metroid. Like it really does feel like an open world. There's like tons of places to go and you don't ever feel like you're being guided unless you're like, let me take the game suggestion and go this way. But like in the sense that you can go so many places and you have a ton of freedom, like I walked through the game the first time feeling like this is like an open exploration game and like it feels free and everything. I don't think it's like linear, quote unquote, like people say it is, but like I think it's kind of the perfect marriage for like people who have never played a game like this versus people who really want to explore and take their time and dig their heels in, and get into the world.
I agree. I think this game overall is a really great balance of everything that makes Metroid as a franchise good.
Yep.
Also, I'm gonna throw out there the starting suit in Dread. Well, it's not the starting suit. The suit that you have after you wake up with the blue shoulders
Hmm.
and everything. It's the best Samus suit.
Oh,
Like
I
not even
actually think
close.
no, I disagree. I think the purple suit, I think the one you have at the end of the game is the coolest suit.
You know, here's the thing. As someone whose favorite color is purple, and I've always liked the gravity suit because of that, I just like this specific one so much that
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
They
this is the
all
best
look
one.
so
Yeah,
good. Dude,
this is my favorite set of Samus suits for sure,
yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah. Let's talk about how cool Samus is because, and by the way, this is so old hat. Like every
Yeah,
person who's reviewed the game has said this, but like her body language is so cool. Like it's amazing that she barely has anything to say, but you can tell she is just over everything. She's like, I've been doing this bounty hunter nonsense for like 30 years. I love that when Kraid shows up and tries to like leap at her, she literally like stares at him and
Stairs.
doesn't move.
Yeah, because
She doesn't move an inch.
well, not only that, but it's the cool. I know you're chained up, and I know you can't actually reach me, so I'm not gonna flinch at your thing.
Yeah.
Because Samus is a badass. Like, she is so cool. The
Yeah.
very first boss fight that you get into, and I think it would have played on this video. I haven't really been paying attention to the gameplay on the screen. So
Oh,
if
same.
any of what we're saying and what's happening on the screen, if you're watching, sounds cool, play Metroid Dread, because what a great game. What was I saying? What were we talking about?
How cool Samus is.
Oh yeah, how cool Samus is. The very first like boss, so you can get into like the little cinematic moments where like she'll like latch onto somebody and basically like shove the arm cannon as close to their mouth as she can get it. And so it doesn't just happen canned. You can just hold the missile, like the missile toggle button, and you start mashing fire, and she just starts spamming missiles, and it's draining from like your ammo pool and everything. So it's just this canned moment where you can just do a whole bunch of damage, and she's just hanging on fighting this thing. And then there's these, almost every single like boss fight ending has her execute these
Yeah.
enemies. Like,
Yeah.
there's a few like I think earlier it was like the no look charge beam in the head to finish off the alien thing.
Yep.
She is not messing around this entire
Yeah.
game, and it's very clear that
Yeah.
she's extremely capable, and is not interested in dealing with all this alien nonsense anymore. She's like you said, I don't even know if it's necessarily like a I'm done. It's just a like, no, there's no games.
Right.
This alien coming at me, I am gonna shoot a missile into his face, and he's gonna explode everywhere, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's such good characterization for a character that says basically nothing the whole game.
Not only that, and we didn't talk about the bad Metroid game. You know the one, don't you?
The bad
The
one?
real the one that almost destroyed this character forever.
Otherm?
Other M, yeah. The one where they
I
weirdly needed to decide to make Samus like extremely effeminate and motherly, despite the fact she's been shooting aliens and robots in a cool power mech suit for bounty hunters made by an alien race for like 30 years. Like, why did that need to be how they characterized her? Because she was a girl? That was stupid. So they completely undid that with this game. She does
Right,
not act
yeah,
like that at all.
Yeah.
And she is just a crazy, awesome bounty hunter in this game.
She's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Two other maybe hot takes, maybe not. Enemy design overall, pretty bland and uninteresting. Boss design, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Like weirdly, I feel like in every other Metroid game, I feel like all of the enemies, just the run of the mill enemies that are floating around, are very memorable. In this one, they're just like, it's a flying alien guy. He's got wings, but he's a little alien, and you're like, all right, cool. They're not like, they don't stand out as much.
I think part of that, so I don't know how much of that is like, was Mercury Steam the one doing the enemy design, or was Nintendo actively involved? It's the one thing that, and this is again probably some amount of nostalgia talking, I don't mind that this game's a 2.5D thing.
No, me neither.
But there's the part of me that I feel like,
It's not as charming as pixel art, is what you're gonna say, right?
and I normally don't feel that way, but I don't even know if it's charming. I feel like something, I don't know if it's that the enemy designs and the design language of Metroid, because it's been pixel for so long, if I expect to see enemy types like that very much in that style, and because I'm not seeing them that way now, that's why I don't think they look as cool. Because I'm with you on, I really don't remember any regular enemies making me go, oh, look at this guy. Whereas I have so many other classic Metroid enemy designs just in my head that I can recall at any moment, And that's just not true in this game. And that is one of the most minor gripes I can think of for this. But
Right.
You know.
It's probably because honestly, like all of it almost feels like now that I'm saying it out loud, it feels like a silly complaint because the Emmys and all of the bosses that are given weight and the weird glowy blue mother brain, everything that's like big and important is extremely memorable.
Hmm.
It just feels like in the end they were like, all right, we have these cool designs for like how to fight these enemies and stuff, but like we kind of just got to slap some enemies together for Samus to fight because we spent so much time making all of the important enemies really cool.
Yeah, the art direction for the regular enemies just isn't as strong as, and I think that
As
also,
usual.
yeah, as usually, I think that's also part of the problem, right? Is Metroid has a really strong design language and really, 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 really great, memorable enemy designs. So anything short of that is like, oh, that's weird. So it's
Yeah.
really more of a by comparison thing because it's not like I was looking at enemies going, oh no, oh, who designed that? It's
Yeah,
nothing. It's nothing like that, you know.
you just kind of hit the end and you're like, "What were the guys again?" Like
Yeah,
they don't stick with
yeah,
you.
yeah. Exactly. It's the same problem I had with Bayonetta 3 with like the enemy faction was like the most generic possible conceivable thing in a world where you've been fighting angels and demons for two previous games and where they're present in that game, and you have this new faction that's the bad guys and they just look like white and toothpaste green mechs or something. I don't know. They're very
Yeah.
boring. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those of like, yeah, when the highs have been so high, anything other than a equally high is kind of jarring. So
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to think of any other interesting really big angles we haven't tackled this game from, which is like I guess
yeah,
maybe narratively, it doesn't feel like narratively it's really that interesting either except for
there's
like we
nothing narratively interesting going on in Metroid. It's really about the characterization and the designs. Like I said, you go to the planet, the planet blows up at some point. That's the story. It's really
it's Yeah, it's interesting that we do get for the first time cutscenes and dialogue with Samus in a way that it feels like they took an effort to make a bigger step forward story wise, but it still kind of feels like it's not the centerpiece, nor should it be.
no. She's basically never talked except for the bad game where she talked and everybody hated it because they made her character bad. Um,
She talked in this game though, in Chozo.
yeah, but how many words does she say the entire game though? It's
Like
not a lot.
10,
Yeah, I was
like
gonna say
10 words.
it's like she talks like once.
Yeah, but for a mainline Metroid game, that's one more than any other game.
That's
Oh no,
true.
that's not true. She talks in Fusion.
She
She talks
does.
she talks to
Well,
Adam
she,
in
she
Fusion.
she's like, oh no, you're right. She does talk to Adam in Fusion. Those are
She
also only a
does.
couple of sequences, and then the rest are her like
Inner monologue, right?
yeah like
Yeah.
logbook 20 34
Been in Sector 5 for 18 days. Haven't had a wink of sleep.
going down the elevator to the cold place. It hurts.
It hurts so bad.
I'm a Metroid now. It hurts.
Killed an ex today.
Uh,
That's what Samus's diary
sucked
would
him
say.
up. Absorbed him and got some health back.
Oh, we didn't talk about how the X returned, which I was so floored by and excited about, and you were like, "Yeah, I saw that coming a million miles away."
Oh, I mentioned that earlier.
Not on this.
Yeah, I did. I mentioned that was the
Well,
whole pretense of why you come here, but we
yeah,
didn't
but
talk
we
about it
didn't
more than
talk
that.
about the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Which I can't believe you saw it come. Because, like, okay, here's the thing I didn't see coming. I knew the X were like a story thing, but like, okay, so in Fusion, the whole gameplay hinges around when you kill an enemy, they turn into the X, which is like this floating blob, and you have to like collect it. Which, by the way, was another thing I loved about Fusion that I thought made it feel great and fun. Was like collecting the floating X's was so cool. I didn't expect them to bring that entire mechanic back in halfway through and just be like, "Oh, hey, now it's Metroid Fusion." I was like, I am so happy right now.
Oh yeah, because you get both the and to be clear to anyone who hasn't played these, when he says that you kill an enemy and then there's a floating power up, that's always been true. But what he really means is that the X flies out of the enemy and then it's going all over the room. It's like flying across the screen, and you gotta
Right?
like
Yeah.
You got to catch it basically to get your little health or ammo boost. Whereas in all the other games, much like you can probably see on screen right now, it's like, and then some missiles or little health things popped out of the enemy right about where you killed them, and then you jump and grab them. But yes, in it partway through the game, after they find out, they're like, oh yeah, we confirmed that the X actually are here, and also they totally got loose, and also everything here is infected now.
Yeah, it's just like everything is Metroid Fusion now. I was like, I'm the happiest I've ever
Yeah,
been
they
since I've
literally go,
been a child.
everything's infected by X. They're all going to look the same, but they're X infected now. But you're fine still because you're part Metroid now, and you'll suck them up. And there's really no reaction. But yeah, you're right. They just change the ammo mechanic from the classic one to the fusion one like halfway through the game.
And I was like, yo, that's so cool. This game just became Metroid Fusion again.
I forgot that it does it just do they have regular drops still at that point? I think they do. No?
No,
There's
I don't
nothing that
know.
makes regular drops at that point?
No, everything becomes Xified.
Here's the thing, either way, still really cool. From a like not just a callback thing, but also I'm with you. I think it's more fun to chase him around.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It was like such a full circle moment for me that made it feel like, oh, it's not like Fusion isn't dead. It really was part of the entire lineage of this game, and it continues to be like, and the X are still an important character and an important factor. Like, I don't know, it made everything come together for me in my head in such a cool way that I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, honestly, one of the I think just in terms of my appreciation for Dread, I think it is really amazing that so much of the DNA of some of these game mechanics comes directly from Fusion. Like we said, the Emmys are just the next evolution of the SAX. They brought back this other alternate mechanic, and also narratively, like the whole events of Fusion are extremely critically important.
Yeah.
So I when Fusion's my favorite in my head, and I know that this one deliberately pulls from that one because it was good, and that's why I'm right. That Fusion's probably the best one. At
Fusion's awesome.
I can't. This one's probably better, but I can't. I don't know. Anyway, they're both really good. I'm just glad that
phenomenal.
other people in the world decided to appreciate Metroid Fusion enough where they were like, we should take stuff from that game.
Yeah, I agree. It's like in like Fusion being my favorite one too, at least until I played Dread, which now I'm very torn and not sure. It was like, yo, they brought my favorite game back. Oh, nice.
Yeah, the only thing that this one could, if they had like a in the oh no, because you get the cool ice beam for the final fight in Fusion. Because
Yes.
all right, yeah, spoilers for Metroid Fusion. Somehow an Omega Metroid that was in captivity gets out because they found that they were breeding Metroids on the ship that you're on. And so the SAX kills most of them, but not all of them. And so as you're trying to escape, an Omega Metroid shows up and just like messes Samus up. And then the SAX shows up and gets totally messed up by the Omega Metroid. But it turns into a big like core X like all the other bosses do for you to get your powers. And so you absorb the SAX and you get your ice beam back and then you fight it. It's so great. This game, you fight Ravenbeak, which is a great boss fight, by the way.
So
really,
good.
really good multi-part boss fight with that. And then
Get creepy Metroid Samus.
yeah, and then Samus goes crazy and goes into like a rage mode, and her whole power suit turns into a Metroid power suit, and she gets a super. It's a callback to I think the Mother Brain fight in Super Metroid, where you get like the super murder beam from the baby Metroid to kill Mother Brain with.
Oh, I guess it is kind of like that, isn't it?
And also there was the reason why I say murder beam is because there was a long time Super Metroid glitch. You know what I'm talking about, right? The murder beam.
No.
There's a glitch that you can do to basically get like that beam in other parts of, yeah, and people call that the murder beam because it's so unbelievably powerful. Yeah.
Save or kill the animals.
Murder
the
beam.
animals.
Murder the animals.
Murder the animals.
Yeah. You don't get a choice in
Oh,
Fusion because canonically, if those animals don't get in that ship, Samus doesn't make it.
that's yes.
So they don't give you that choice in
Yeah.
Fusion.
Genocide route for
Yep.
Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Wait, you know what's a cool detail about the X? Sorry, did I cut you off or were you still in
No.
Murder Beam story?
No. I don't know. Say what you're gonna. I was done. I think.
Oh, okay. The cool this was a cool detail that was pointed out when I was watching some video about Dread is the first thing that happens when the X are released is they go and they turn off the warming system so that the planet will freeze over because the X's natural predators are the Metroid,
Metroids.
and that's like what they did. They were like, "Well, we're gonna freeze this whole planet because if there are any Metroids, we're gonna kill them all off." I was like, "That is such a smart,
Yep.
cool detail that
Yep.
was deliberately put in this game that was not pointed out to anybody."
Yep. Yeah. And I don't know that I fully understand Ravenbeak's motivation in this game because it turns out that he just really wants to basically take the fact that Samus is like a human Chozo now Metroid hybrid. Oh yeah, by the way, Samus's father is Ravenbeak for some reason, which is weird. I don't know why. Um,
It's weird. I don't think it's bad, but it's just kind of like what you
it's
know.
one of those like why? I don't know. Um, so because she's part Chozo and has a Chozo power suit and is also now part Metroid, he's like, okay, she's the most powerful thing in the universe. I have to make this a weapon. And so the whole pretense is that he's pretending to be Adam so that you can go and recollect all of your powers and stuff so that you can be like super, super, super strong. And he wants to basically turn her into a soldier. And then at the end, he's like, it doesn't matter. I collected your DNA. I can just make a clone army of you.
So the whole point is that like he's like about to kill her at the beginning, but he realizes that if he takes all of her powers away, or maybe he just planned to do this from the beginning. I guess he did send the X distress signal, but I think his whole thought process was if I take her powers away, I can sort of trick her by traversing this planet into unlocking her full Metroid power because I
Mm-hmm.
think she like when she gets the glowy hand at the end is really the moment that she does become the full-on Metroid and have access to the Metroid powers, and
Yep.
so he needed to make her go through that evolution was the idea.
Yep, and then it backfires because she's way too strong, and she hits him with the glowy hand and just basically sucks him up, and he dies.
Yeah,
It's
which
great.
it's cool because again, like to see Samus's characterization, like when she starts screaming at the
Screaming.
top of her lungs,
Hmm.
it's like, oh my god, I'm a little terrified right now. Like it's pretty
Yeah,
nuts.
she just does the Super Saiyan 3 scream for like 4.5 straight minutes. That's not true. It's not
Yeah.
quite that long. But she does that, and then the rage thing basically activates whatever thing in the Metroid powers. And then the other guy who like apparently those Chozo had the ability to like calm the X or calm the Metroids or something like that.
Or something,
Yeah,
yeah.
he got eaten by the X before, so then he like shows up on the ship because like Samus is about to like touch her ship, and then Adam's like, no, if you do that, you'll like drain all the energy out of the ship because of the state that you're in right now, and you'll be stuck here and you'll die. And then
Here's my
and
theory.
then the Chozo man shows up, morphs into an X, and she sucks him up, and then it like cancels the Metroid suit, and then she can
Here's my
leave.
here's my theory. And I don't know if this was intentional, but this is what I think they're going to do. Because if you look it up, people still don't know. There is no explanation as to why Chozo Man, who got destroyed by an X, suddenly shows up and then transforms back into a docile X. No one knows why. Like, did he overcome the X and is now able to control it? Did the X just clone him for some reason? This is what I think they're going to turn it into. I think that X was like a bad X. It wasn't actually Chozo Man, and I think it sucked itself into Samus, and it's going to be the one remaining X that we see in whatever the sequel is. I think it's going to make a return that it was sort of harboring itself within Samus or something because it doesn't make literally any sense that that guy who died suddenly shows up but then turns into an X. Like what? So that's my theory as to how they're going to retcon it later.
Did he die on screen? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
they show his dead body.
Huh. I don't.
They show him this is what happens. He dies when you meet him
Right.
because a big robot shows up. And then before he dies, he turns off the Emmy, right? So you're like, cool, there's no Emmy. I don't got to worry about nothing. And
Hmm.
then once the X are freed, an X possesses his corpse and reactivates the Emmy. That's right, why you have to fight the final one. So,
Yeah. I guess
so it's
I'm just assuming that like the pretense is his ex puppeted corpse was just randomly on the ship, basically for no reason other than that it was important for the plot.
but I
I,
think
I'm
I
not
think
I'm
they're
not
gonna
gonna I'm not thinking about it too hard. There's not a whole lot
I'm
of
gonna
plot in Metroid.
I think they're gonna retcon it. I think in the next game, it's gonna be like Samus is gonna be like, we killed all of the X in the universe. The X are all gone. We wiped them out, and then that one that saved her was actually like harboring itself within her and is gonna like reinvigorate the X. That's my theory. I don't think they planned it that way. I think they're gonna retcon it that way.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That they'll be like, well,
Yeah.
what do we do as the next enemy? I hope they do something different because having the X for bringing back the X for this one because of the gap between Fusion and Dread, I think was fine. I think it would be weird to keep the X going, but that's me personally.
It's hard to say, I think. I think if the X do come back in some way, they can't just, oh, hey, it's the same exact X mechanics, because it was cool to see all of the X mechanics return in the way they were. Like, now that you kill bosses, they turn into a giant X and you have to kill them. That was neat. But if they just do that for the third time in a row,
Yeah,
it'll
that's what
be
I
lame
mean.
if they don't,
Because it's
yeah, if they
just
don't expand upon it. So I'm not against them coming back, but I think they're gonna have to, maybe they'll do like a X Metroid hybrid that like the X and the Metroid sort of fused together and became this crazy thing.
I'm gonna make a statement that just because Samus has Metroid absorby powers is what they should do is they should have another enemy type that can theoretically turn into a chaseable absorbable thing and just make it not X but have the same mechanics.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just yeah, just make it a new thing.
I'm definitely interested to see where they go with the fact that now Samus is just like straight up a Metroid and does have this new glowy hand ability.
Yeah, well,
Um,
we'll find out in like 2050 or whenever they come out with another Metroid game.
I think she's gonna have like, other theory is that you'll be able to turn into the big crazy green suit at certain points and like have to fight bosses that way. Like she'll start to
I
be
hope
able to
so.
call that ability out. That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, give me. All right. Last game was Devil May Cry 5.
Yeah.
I want Dread Mode Devil Trigger.
Oh yeah, that'd be
I
cool.
hit a button, and I turn into Super Mode.
That would be
That would
awesome.
probably destroy the flow of how a Metroid game works, but it sounds cool while I'm thinking about it. Anyway,
Yeah, but I think they should integrate that into the game mechanics in the following game because it's so cool that you got that. I was like, oh, I'll get to replay the game now, but with Crazy Green Suit as like a cosmetic option.
yeah,
No, that's not a thing.
yeah. Well, what I wonder if I looked up on the internet if anyone's like basically modded a game where someone's doing that. I'm curious what would
No,
happen.
probably not.
Mm,
It's probably never happened.
yeah, no one's ever modded or emulated or hacked a game before. You're right. It's never
Tommy,
happened.
get off the internet,
No
bro.
one,
There's nothing good there.
no one's ever. What are you doing here then?
What? And then I just leave. You just hear the microphone hit the floor. What?
Andy? Andy?
Oh, that's crazy. Dude, we've talked so much about Metroid and Metroid Dread. Is there anything left
I,
to say?
I'm not gonna lie. I thought we were only gonna talk about this for an hour because Dread's a relatively short game, but we just started gushing about the whole series, and I think this ended up better for it. To be honest with you, so
Yeah, me too. Like, and we didn't really talk, we talked about this before we recorded, but like I think Dread was the moment I realized how much I love Metroid as a franchise, like just so much. And I played Dread, and as soon as I finished playing it for this recording, I was like, I'm gonna replay Super Metroid, and then I did, like, just because I really think I'm like such a fanboy of these 2D games. I think they're some of the best games ever made, like big time.
they are fundamentally, I think, some of the best designed, and as I said before, some of the most important games that have existed because tenets of like this design philosophy exist so many other places in video games and It's hard to say. I'm not going to say that like no other video game ever tried to do anything like this, but this is the one that is really popular. And because it became a popular thing, it's now part of the zeitgeist and the meta for this type of game. It simply is, It it
Yeah.
it constructed it for itself, not on purpose, but just because it's really good fundamentally. So yeah,
Yeah.
Metroid, good series.
Yeah. Um it's so good. So honestly now I want to like replay Fusion or something. Like I think I could always at any time replay any one of these Metroid games cuz I find them to be so deeply fun.
I haven't played Fusion in quite a while, and man, that would be a trip down memory lane for me. You know what else
I
would make
pretty
Super
much
Metroid better? If Samus was smaller on the screen,
yeah.
if you could see more,
Yeah.
because they got there afterwards, but
Yep.
because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking back to Super Metroid, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Samus is like 3 times as high on the screen in comparison.
Yeah.
You just see much
Yeah.
less at one time. Yeah, if you just took the camera and pulled it back in Super Metroid a little bit, I'd probably also think higher of that game. Again, wonderful, incredible, super amazing game. Just a thing that now with, an additional 30 years of hindsight, I'd be like, maybe a couple things to tweak here and there.
Yeah.
So,
Hey Nintendo, give me the keys to Metroid.
Nintendo, why don't you just give me Super Metroid and then zoom the camera out and then make the jumps a little heavier. And you're done.
Do you think there are people who like people say this about everything, so obviously it's like just because they said it doesn't mean it's true. But there were people that were like, is it possible we might get a Super Metroid remake in this engine? Like a somewhat modern remake? Do you think we'll ever get anything like that?
Ooh. I only
I think it's not
say
off the table, but like
I only say no because I don't think Nintendo they don't really do that. That's the only
oh,
reason.
except for the Thousand Year Door, which is coming out this year.
Yeah, but they didn't put the whole thing in like a brand new engine there. Listen, that's a miracle that game is getting a re-release for a lot of reasons. I'm very very excited that this is happening. I played a lot of Thousand Year Door back in the GameCube days. I
Mhm.
think that game's incredible. I have very 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 fond memories of it. But that's that.
TTYD.
But that wasn't the equivalent of what you're saying about Metroid. Like if we were going to remake Super Metroid, would be if they had made a newer, better Paper Mario RPG, which they haven't, with a better engine, which they still haven't, and then they
Yep.
took the old game and they put it in the new one. Whereas this one is like, I think they're pretty much gonna take the emulator approach and they're going to upscale the assets and maybe make a couple other tweaks and it'll be the same game otherwise. And that's fine because the art style, but you
Yeah,
know what I
you do have
mean.
a good point that that's not something they're known for, but it
Yeah,
is something they could do.
I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I wouldn't really enjoy that. I think it would be really cool. You could give me all of the Metroid games in this engine, any and or all, and I'd be all about it because it'd be super cool. I
Yeah.
just don't think it's gonna happen,
No, it's
unfortunately.
not. Honestly, I go back and forth with this. I don't know if I would enjoy that because there are some Super Metroid to me is a game that's so perfect that it doesn't need a remake. I think it looks great. I think it feels great. I think it's awesome. There are maybe some things that are clunky about it, but I'm one of those people that sometimes like I don't know, I don't think we needed a Link's Awakening remake. That game was perfect the way it was. Like I can be that guy a little bit.
Well, yeah, but that's because the Link's Awakening remake isn't as good as the original. It's
No,
good.
it's just as good. I've played it multiple times. It's great.
Oh, I don't. Here's the thing. I've played it. I don't think it's as good as the original. It's great, but the original is like my favorite Zelda game.
Oh
Still,
yeah, the original has my heart captured for
yeah,
sure. Like but we didn't need it. Like that one doesn't look bad or feel bad or nothing about it aged badly.
yeah,
So why
exactly.
did we get one of those?
Yeah, I don't know. That one I also thought was. I'm not going to complain because they remade my literal favorite Zelda game, which I'm grateful that that is a thing that I can say. But also, yeah, I'm with you on like the original was so good that I'm probably still just gonna, given a choice, I'm still gonna play the OG.
It's we tend to have like weird lineups, especially with Nintendo games, because Link's Awakening is also my favorite, hands above, far and away, just like Metroid Fusion.
I thought you liked the Oracle ones more.
No, not more.
Oh,
You
okay. I
crazy?
thought you liked them more.
No, no, they're good, but nothing's as good as Link's
Yeah,
Awakening.
Link's Awakening is the best one.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's the one that I played growing up, so there's definitely the nostalgia factor. But then I started playing all the other 2D Zelda games, and then I went back to play Link's Awakening. I'm like, oh no, no, this one's still better. I
It's still the
definitely
best
still
one.
think this one's better. Not that the other ones are bad. Like A Link to the Past, incredible. Still not as good as
Yeah,
Link's Awakening in my head.
yeah. No, same. I agree. All right. Well, maybe we should wrap this up then, unless there's anything more. I feel like we really have hit the
Yeah,
when you dig far and you hit those like that.
the
What's
the
that called?
the whom the bedrock.
Yeah, we hit the bedrock on
Yeah,
this one.
yeah, um, yeah, probably. Do we want to like live as we did last time? Creative brains mushing together into trying to figure out what we play next time, even though we didn't mention Metroid Dread at all last time and ended up being Metroid Dread.
Yes. So as I told you, I already mentioned once, but I'd love to do one, and this would be cool because we may not have to prep. We could maybe just think on it, but I'd love to talk about what the next Zelda thing might be. Is that something you're open to, or are you like, nah, I'm not into
You
that?
know, I got to think about it a little bit because you, we both I think feel relatively strongly about 3D Zelda, and
Oh
I
yeah.
I mostly feel not positively about it, which is why I don't know if it would be interesting just purely from I don't know. I don't know if I have input because most of my thoughts on 3D Zelda are like, yeah, I mean these things are cool and full disclosure, didn't play Tears of the Kingdom. Um Probably not going to play Tears of the Kingdom because I played enough Breath of the Wild and then went, I'm done with this game now. It was really good, but I just have no interest in running around Hyrule anymore. I got like 100 something shrines. I'm going to go beat Ganon's face in and save the world. And I just didn't want to do that again even if I could like be a magic engineer, because that doesn't sound interesting to me. Um,
I still think, and
but
I know I won't convince you, I still think you should try it at some point. But I also understand the thing of like, I have 50 million games to play, and if I'm not that interested in this one, why would I play that one?
yeah,
I understand it.
exactly. I've said numerous times in my personal life at this point, and I will say it on the internet. Tears of the Kingdom as a game is objectively a triumph for all of the things that it is, and I'm not going to play it because I have no personal interest in playing it
All right, so
because
you
of my circumstances and my relationship with 3D Zelda.
yes. So you're not interested in speculating about what it doesn't have to be 3D either. It could be 2D, but you're not interested in talking like what's the future of Zelda.
My only hesitation is because I'm interested in that discussion. I'm just worried that I won't have as much to bring to the table because you're more invested in the idea of it. Whereas for me, I'm like, yeah, they're gonna release one, and I'm probably not gonna play it.
Well, oh dude, same. I'm actually I'm like 50-50 on it because I'm with you. I also don't really like 3D Zelda. The only ones that have captured me are Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and like well, now I want to discuss it now, but I don't know if I
Double
necessarily have a
episode.
lot to yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to say either. I just think it would be fun because it's like a fun space right now. But
Yeah,
we'll think on it. So
yeah.
that's a thought.
I'd have to think about it. Now, here's the thing. Even if it's not that specific topic, I think that something along those lines, in terms of where do we think X is going, or something like that, would also be not a bad move. Um, I
Be
am
fun.
also wondering if we should, because so far we've played a game, like we've either played or replayed a game for these episodes so far. I'm
What to do
wondering,
a new one?
yeah, I was gonna say we could either do a thing that neither of us have played before and are both interested in playing, or talk about a thing that we've already both played like the ever loving crap out of, so that we don't have to actually go back and replay it. Because when it comes to deep dives and conversations, when it's a game that like I have played for innumerable hours, it ain't that hard for me to talk about all the things that I do and don't like about it. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could
I
we could
I
we could do a Hades episode and talk about Hades for like 13 hours about every element of the design of why that game is like perfect.
That's not a bad idea.
Right? And also,
Yeah.
I full disclosure, I was totally playing Hades, I think like literally yesterday or 2 days ago, because every now and then you're just like, I could just do a couple runs, you know,
Yeah.
in like less than an hour. I could just do a couple Hades runs.
Yeah, I'm with you on like let's do one that we've both played cuz surprisingly we haven't done that yet and I think we tend to have a lot in common, so that's not a bad idea. I like the thought of doing a Hades one.
All
I love
right.
Hades.
Episode 4, it's in the books. It's going to be Hades. It's coming to
Zelda, the
you
future.
tomorrow.
Oh, oh,
Tomorrow. Oh, no, it's not going to be tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Definitely not going to do that. I mean, here's the thing. If we started talking about Hades right now, I totally could. I'm not gonna, but you know.
There's supposed to be a Hades 2 this year.
Uh,
Did that ever happen?
early access will probably hit this year.
It was supposed to hit early. No, it was supposed to hit early last year, wasn't it?
They announced early access would be coming at some point
In 2023.
at the Game Awards in either late 2022 or early 2023 in like a year. I think they're behind schedule from what
Yeah,
it
I
is
was
they
going to
said.
say. I remember them saying early access is coming, and I don't think it ever did.
No, it didn't. Not yet. Otherwise, I'd probably be playing it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I did not play early access for the original Hades. I was only 1.0 and further. I know a lot of people who played it prior to 1.0.
Yeah.
And played a lot. Did you play it prior to 1.0?
No, I got it on the full release.
Okay. But yeah, I might get into it for Hades 2, if only because they've already had a whole game prior to it to like base the fundamentals off of. And so I feel like it'll inherently be a more feature complete early access compared to what Hades 1 was. Even though apparently Hades 1's early access was like
Pretty complete.
absurd, yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel like Hades is a very strong contender for the next episode because
Yeah.
there are so many layers to everything that makes that game incredible. It is
Yeah.
truly a triumph of a video game. It made an all-time favorite of a game out of a genre that I categorically dislike.
Yeah.
I don't like roguelikes, generally speaking. It takes a really, really, really good one to make me go, oh, okay, cool. And Hades is
too.
like that one.
Yeah. All right, let's here's a random one that we can end the episode on.
Uh-oh.
Just a random pitch. Just pitch me like a random game that's just like you should play
I'm
it.
going to pitch you a baseball.
Ouch. That was my
random pitch for
shoulder.
video game.
Yeah,
Are
give me
there,
a random
are there
pitch.
any restrictions?
No.
I mean, you got to be able to play it. Like it's got to
mean,
be it's got to be on a system
Yeah,
that you play
yeah.
video games on.
Yeah, I'm saying like a game that you're like, and maybe I'll go first. And see, this is just my random pitch because I just need to tell anybody. Do you want me to go first since I have
Ooh,
mine?
yeah. Oh, if you already know yours, yeah. Oh, you're gonna have to do it, and I'm gonna be like, oh no.
You should play Grand Blue Fantasy Relink that just came out. That game is really good.
Here's the thing. I've been thinking about picking it up.
It's really good.
I didn't know you were playing it. Interesting.
I beat it.
Oh, you
I'm
beat it.
done
Oh
with
my
it.
god. Okay. Yeah.
It's not that long, which is also another reason I would pitch it. But it's really good. It's like if you like power friendship anime JRPGs, but also it's more like Dark Souls or something with cool hack and slash. It's honestly like a near Automata ish, Tales of Arise ish,
You know what's
Dark Souls ish.
What's really funny about you saying Nier Automata specifically is that
we
game,
should do that one.
Well, yes, it is what we named the podcast after, and we talked about it. But, I don't know exactly what all of the like legal dealings and stuff were, but I believe at one point Platinum was actively developing Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and people have
Yes.
found in the code of the game some stuff that also exists in Nier Automata. So I think it might literally be that engine modified with Platinum
Oh,
people working on
really?
it. Yeah, and Platinum doesn't have their name on it anymore because of some weird legal messery and they're no longer involved. I don't know exactly what happened, but there is a chance that you saying, "Oh yeah, it feels a little bit like Nier Automata." It's because, well, it's built from I think some of the bones of Nier Automata by some of the same people who made it. So,
Hmm.
it makes sense.
It can't be that contentious because 2B got announced as a character in the whatever the Grand Blue Fantasy.
The
There's like
fighting
a
game?
2D fighting game.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's
she
a
came out
character
4
in it.
days ago, and I'm gonna be honest
Yeah.
with you, Andy. I don't play fighting games because I'm not actually good at them. But that Grand Blue fighting game is it's got a lot of mechanics, but it's not um, execution heavy. It's a lot more like modern controls in Street Fighter 6 or like Smash controls compared to like playing Street Fighter 6 where I got to do all my quarter circles and blah 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 blah. But it's still got all the deep mechanics and decision making of a fighting game,
Okay.
and it's free.
Yeah.
So
But you should
uh,
play Relink though.
I probably will at some point. I'm gonna probably wait till something like that goes on sale.
If anything, my biggest part of the pitch is just that it's short. I beat it in like a week. It's a very short game.
It's just 60
And
bucks.
it is. That's definitely the thing about
I'm
it.
gonna wait.
It's it's a short game, but if you really like the combat mechanics, which I do, the end of the game after you beat it is like, hey, here's some more content if you want it. If you want to do like this other part of the story, and you're like, cool, I'll definitely do that. And then the game is just like, also now we're Monster Hunter. So if you want to just fight things and really get into the combat and like have fun
Mm.
punching things, there's a million more things to punch if you want to. So I had a pretty deep dive for like a week where I was just like, all I'm gonna do is punch things.
That's gonna need to go on the list at some point. Probably not in the very near future, but in the mid near future. You
It's
know.
definitely like I think like what Tales of Arise wanted to be. It's like in that zone of like a J. It's really at its heart. It's like a JRPG, Final Fantasy ish story, but it's like an action RPG instead, which is like so my zone.
Here's the thing. I don't know nothing about like the Grand Blue universe and like that because Grand Blue's been a thing that's existed for like a really long time. So whatever's going on there, not a clue.
Neither did I.
I do think it's funny that in Grand Blue the continuity, we were just talking about how they added 2B. Um, there is a character in Grand Blue named Nier.
Not in Fantasy Relink there isn't because I didn't meet that character.
There is a character in the Grand Blue continuity slash universe, whatever it is, named Nier, which I think is very funny.
Huh.
And it's
Yeah,
not
there's
and it's not
definitely
Nier as in the Nier franchise or Nier as in a character named Nier from the Nier franchise, but a Nier in Grand Blue.
yeah, it's clearly influenced for sure in a big way.
Yeah, I think Grand Blue's been around for a long time. I don't really know what it is. Anyway, yeah.
So
So
that's my pitch. What's your random pitch? Now that I was just like, I need to pitch it to Tommy because he'd
I'm
love it.
I I don't know. I wanna pick something that I actually like think for sure that you'll really enjoy. But I'm always a little uncertain as to like if it's a game that I like, and I'm always like I don't know if Andy is really into that because I was very recently playing. Do you like beat 'em ups? Like old school beat 'em ups?
Like you're going left to right and you're on the street kinda and
Yeah,
you're like the Ninja Turtle ones.
yeah, or like Streets of Rage.
I could be swayed.
Okay, because I've been playing Streets of Rage 4, which is
Okay.
really good. It
All
is
right.
it is an incredible beat 'em up that also does lots of callbacks to like the original Streets of Rage games. I own it on Switch and Steam. I just was playing it again and I was like, oh yeah, because we've been talking about like good feeling fighting combat mechanics, and it's not nearly as complicated as Devil May Cry or anything like that, but it is fun and the art and everything is really good. The art and the
See, my
animations
thing
are awesome.
my thing with beat 'em ups is just like I love a game like this but I am only going to play it. Like, I would love to play it with you or somebody else.
We can do
Playing it
that.
solo, I'm not drawn to it. Can you play it online?
You can.
Oh, see, that would be a fun little like romp to get people together, do
Oh
that.
yeah, maybe we do co-op episodes in the future where it's a game that we both like, but because we literally played it like together or something.
Oh, dude, that's a smart idea.
Yeah, it doesn't
Ah,
necessarily have to be
see?
Streets of Rage 4, but just something like that,
Ah, see. Yeah, if we could do it co-op online, that would be amazing fun.
Yeah, because my other thought was that I was gonna be like, I'm gonna make Andy play a game that he would call a shooty man game, but it's not actually a shooty man game because for some reason he thinks games where you shoot a gun all are exactly the same, which is not true.
Shoot man game.
Yeah, because I
You
was
duck.
gonna I was gonna say that Andy, you should play.
Oh, the big building one.
What?
The big building one. Control.
I wasn't gonna say Control, but that's a great idea. That game's incredible.
What was the one you were gonna
I
say?
was gonna say the Resident Evil 4 remake.
That's one I might give a go for the show because I know you love it so much that it feels like one that
We
and
were
everybody loves it so much that it feels like it would be worth talking about. Maybe. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say I'm going to go download it right now. I'm
Oh
just saying
yeah.
I have thought about it.
We were talking before about the concept of remakes and blah blah blah, and Resident Evil 4 is one of my all-time favorite games. It's one of the most important action games to have ever come out. It's a game that I would have called maybe not necessarily perfect, but also like why would you remake this, because like the reason why it is what it is because it defines so much about action games going forward. And so they took the best action game ever made and they remade it and they made it different and they made the best action game ever made. It's
Yep.
incredible.
Yep.
I don't know how to explain how it somehow has all the DNA of the original while being completely fresh, and they play like two completely different games and they're both individually incredible experiences. And
Nice.
I almost don't want to tell you to play the remake because I would be like, you know what, Andy, you should play the OG first, and then you should
Oh, I
play the
mean, come
remake.
on. Come on. I'd do the remake. Everyone loves the remake.
Yeah, but the OG is also incredible. I would go back and play OG Resident Evil 4 right now.
I'm not doing it. If I'm ever doing it, it's gonna be the remake because that's the one everyone loves a ton.
Everyone loves both of them.
Yeah, but everyone loves this one.
Right, that's what I said. But also the other one.
Man, this has been fun.
Everyone's like, why are we listening to these two morons?
Yeah,
speak?
we really did go on a while after. That's Metroid Dread, everybody.
Yeah, we're still talking about that, right? Or something like that.
Uh,
Gosh.
I hope you enjoyed this deep dive
Y-
into Metroid Dread and
yeah,
also how our brains work. I
yeah.
we don't know when the next one is coming, as always, and this one was delayed forever because I got the bronies. But we're probably gonna do Hades next, whenever that is. Look forward to it on the YouTubes.
Hades!
You could you can follow us on Spotify, which is where our if you want to just listen, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch footage of these games and chill out with us while you go to sleep or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if my voice is good to sleep to. I never
You
thought
ever
about
listen to
that.
the Did You Know Gaming, the 2-hour sleep compilations?
No, but there's also. Did you know there's like a whole
Did you
uh
know?
Babish like going to sleep, like binging with Babish like podcast thing where he just softly, yeah, I don't know,
Who is Babish?
like binging with Babish, like the cooking channel.
I don't even know what that
Oh
is.
my gosh, really? That's right.
Yeah,
You're culturally illiterate. I forgot about that.
big time. Dude, I'm the most cultural. I have always been this way. You should have known.
I mean, so am
You
I.
may as
So
you may as well have been like, yeah. Do you know how anyone scores a touchdown? Like, no, of course I don't.
you put the score ball in the score annex.
Sports ball. I'm wearing my sports ball shirt right now. Actually,
Here's the thing. I
see
actually
it?
I actually watch
It says
sports.
yay.
It does
It
say
says
yay
yay
sports.
sports
Can
ball,
confirm it says yay sports ball.
and then it says do the thing, win the points.
Do the thing. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're still going on. This has been episode three, three,
Trace.
three. I can count. can't remember or speak or count. Anyway, this has been episode 3 of Cryptic Puzzle about a whole bunch of stuff and kind of Metroid Dread in there somewhere. Yeah. So hopefully us rambling was at least a little entertaining, and we'll be back in, I don't know, eventually, like a month, maybe less,
I'd say a
maybe
month is
more,
probably a safe bet.
something like that. This is now a monthly scheduled podcast, which runs exactly counter to what we said in the first episode. No, it's not. I just
It's
lied to you.
definitely
I
not.
lied to everyone. It's my favorite pastime is gaslighting my audience. Goodbye,
It's
everyone.
everybody's favorite. All right, night, everybody.
See ya.